All right, we are live, y'all. We are live. What's up, everybody? We are live. Welcome to our session of the Cover Cloud Podcast. My name is Will. I'm the host of this show, number one Polynesian podcast in the world. If you're watching this right now live, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for jumping on every single week on my weekly shows. Everybody out there that always jump in and always tune in every single week. All my subscribers out there, all my followers out there, thank you so much for all the live support. If you appreciate the content, you're watching the content and love what I do, support the channel, press and smash that like and subscribe. Don't forget, I do have a quick disclaimer for everybody out there under the age of 18.
This content is not suitable for the children under the age of 18 without adult supervision. Please be advised.
Please be advised. We're going to have a great topic to discuss tonight, especially when it comes to the relationships and dating a single mom. So we do have a great panel. We do have a great topic when we want to discuss tonight. So thank you so much for everybody out there. Don't forget, we got that live chat going. So let's definitely get that live chat going. Everybody always dropping the comments and feedback and their opinions on the live chat, especially on the different topics that we discuss every single week on the show. So appreciate you guys always dropping the comments in the live chat. Let's get that live chat popping out. Don't forget, this is a public show. So if you're watching this for the very first time, I always advocate for people to come on and have conversations, regardless of what the topics that we discuss. So if you guys want to be part of the show, I'm going to post the public Zoom link. I'm sorry, the public link on the live chat. You guys can click on the live chat and I'll pin it to the top of the screen. Just click on that link and you'll be able to join us. I know everybody always tunes in for the different topics that we discuss. I always want to invite people, especially people that disagree with my views or disagree with the things that we say on here, whether it's me or somebody on the panel. So if you guys disagree, I invite you guys to be part of the conversation, whether we agree or disagree, but let's have the conversation. So definitely jump on. It is a public show. And for all my haters out there, I know you guys have a lot of
emotional damage.
emotional damage. Regardless of your damage, let's talk about it. Click on that link and let's have a conversation. Don't forget that everybody out there that always donates to my channel on the super chat donations. Thank you so much for all your love and support and always donating to my channel, supporting me financially with your pockets. You guys all know if you follow me, following my journey, my whole goal is to get my podcast studio. So every single dollar that you guys will donate will always be reinvested into my podcast to give you guys better quality content, but also to get that studio. I already know. Just be patient, y'all. I'm putting the work behind the scenes, putting a lot of hard work, investing every single dollar I got, every single dollar I got that I make outside of the podcast to get that quality studio for you guys. And once we get that studio, we're gonna take this show to a whole nother level. So just be patient, y'all. Everything happens when the time comes. So, but thank you so much. If you want to drop a super chat, the best way to ask it through a question, ask it through a topic. We're gonna have a great topic to discuss tonight. Especially, we're gonna break down how to maneuver in the dynamic of dating a single mom, especially with a lot of the risks involved. So I know this is a content that's never been seen before or never been created a lot in the online space. So a lot of you guys probably gonna have a lot of questions and things that you want us to answer. So ask it through a super chat. I'll make it a priority. I'll give you a shout out on the live show, and also I'll make sure that we can discuss it to reciprocate your financial donation. But nevertheless, that's pretty much all my YouTube stuff. I see some of you guys tuning in already. I see the viewers popping up on my channel. So yeah, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys excited for this week's show? You guys probably already know the topic. Let me allow my guests real quick to introduce themselves. Shout out to the guests for taking the time out of their busy day to be part of my show. Thank you so much. All right. But I'm gonna allow you guys real quick to do a quick intro. A lot of you guys that watch the show probably already know the guy with the red shirt, but you have no idea what the person next to him on the black shirt. But I'll allow her real quick to introduce herself real quick. So Alicia, if you can go ahead, introduce yourself real quick for everybody out there. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Alicia Marvel, and I'm Daniela's wife. The single mom he dated and is still with.
All right, no worries. Alicia, thank you so much. I appreciate you being part of the conversation. I know a lot of people that watch my show, Daniela is always their favorite, one of their favorite guests to always tune in. They love watching, be able to see his wife that he highly talks about all the time on the podcast. appreciate you for jumping on tonight. Excited to have you on the podcast. Obviously, thank you so much for jumping on. But I'll pass it on to Daniela. Go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, Malolele, everyone. As most of you probably already know, I'm Daniela. We currently reside in New Zealand. And I think the space in terms of relationship, men and women, needs content like these, in the sense that we need to normalize talking in general about the dynamic that is between men and women. And rather than looking at it as a competition, we should be looking at ways of building the relationship that we currently already have with each other. But also in saying that, we should also consider and not be delusional to the fact that we do bring some red flags to the table. But in saying that, it is up to us to recognize those red flags and work on them. If the end goal is to have a healthy relationship, start a family, and have that long term, and building it, the next generation, we should look and acknowledge what we bring to the table that are problematic and find solutions and how we deal with it. And I think starting the conversation with topics like these are very important. It's very important right now. So looking forward to what we have to talk about today.
All right, no worries. All right, thank you guys for New Zealand and jumping on as a couple for being part of the podcast tonight. So everybody that's watching right now, let me know your comments. I mean, a lot of you guys are silent right now. I see some people already on watching, but the live chat is not moving. So all the silent ninjas out there, don't be drop a comment. Let me know what you guys. Hey, I know you guys are watching already. Drop a comment. Let me know. Don't be a ninja watcher, right? Don't be a ninja watcher, right? Show some love and support and drop some comments and let me know what you guys think. But nevertheless, let's go right into it. You guys already know the topic that we're gonna discuss tonight, and I know this is a must podcast for all the single moms out there and all the men who may be interested in dating single moms. The topic is how to mitigate the risk of getting into a relationship with a single mom. So before we dive into the topic, I do want to state the purpose of why we're making this content. So obviously, for a lot of you guys that always tune into my weekly shows, a lot of my content of the podcast or the topics that we discuss revolves around relationships. If you guys watch my content, you guys know I'm a big advocate of building strong relationships. I do believe that the foundation of any positive and great society always starts at the home, always starts with the family. So I'm always a big advocate for men to become better men and also for the women as well. But I want to make sure you understand, obviously, if you're on YouTube, you're probably familiar with the term red pill or manosphere. I know there's a lot of people out there that may consider my content red pill or part of the manosphere, even though I don't see myself in those categories because I don't agree with everything they have, but I am red pill aware of the things they talk about. But the topic that we discussed tonight, for me personally, and of course, I'll allow Daniela. Real quick, I see 08 Kim C. How do I join the podcast live? Hey, after this intro real quick, after I say the purpose, I'm gonna post a public link on the live chat, and you can just click on the live chat. I'm gonna pin it to the top of the screen. It's a live chat on YouTube, so make sure you're on YouTube and you can click on it and you can be part of the show. So just wanted to answer that real quick. So but let me finish my purpose and then I'll be able to post it real quick on the live chat, and then you'll be able to join the live podcast. Thank you so much. If you want to, thank you so much for participating and want to be part of the podcast. Just give me some time. But I want to make sure it's clear for everybody out there the purpose and of why I want to have this conversation, especially with allowing Daniela and his wife to jump on and share their experience. So I know there's a lot of men out there, also a lot of people out there making content that they shouldn't date single moms. Obviously, there's a lot of risks. A lot of you guys that watch my content know that I'm always big into data and statistics. There's a lot of statistics out there that show of representing all the risks that's involved with dating a single mom. So I want to make sure everybody is clear that I'm not telling people or telling men out there to go date single moms. The reason why I wanted to because the statistics, I do believe there's a lot of truth and there's a lot of trend of the statistics of how the dynamic and the behavior of how single moms act and it's represented through the statistics we often talk about it on the show. But what I want to do is I want to be able to um, provide some kind of framework or guideline for a lot of men out there that choose that want to, you know what, if they don't want to, if they want to ignore statistics and want to make their own choice for themselves for their own life, at least we can give them some kind of some guideline how to do it. Because if you go to, I told Daniela this, if you go online and type in how to date a single mom on YouTube or just on Google, there's no content out there for men of how to date a single mom. And there's no content for single moms on how to build relationships as a single mom. So if you guys watch my content, I'm always big on trying to create a solution. I don't think the solution is we just give up on each other, give up on relationships, give up on building strong families for society, and just go on our own way. As you guys see, there's a big movement called MGTOW, men going their own way. A lot of men are so paralyzed by the statistics, about paralyzed by their past experiences that they no longer want to pursue a relationship with women or with a significant other. So the reason why I want to have this conversation, I just want to be able to, if a man decides to go into a relationship with a single mom, even though the statistics reflect that the majority of the time it probably won't work out, but if he decides to do it, at least we can offer some kind of knowledge or framework or guideline of how to do it the best way possible. And I think for a lot of times there's no conversation or there's no content out there. So even though, that's why I'm so glad that Daniela and Alice is here. Their relationship to share their experience, making their relationship work. Even though when they first met, Alice was a single mom and Daniela met her. For majority of the time, those relationships don't work out, but for some reason they were able to make it work. And I'm so glad they're here to able to share the experience not only with me, but for everybody out there that's watching. So I just wanted to make it clear for everybody out there. I just want to provide content for people out there that at the end of the day, regardless of what we say on this podcast, you have to make your own choice for your own life, and you have to take accountability for those choices that you're going to make. So before you make those choices, at least we can offer you some guidelines, some knowledge, some perspective to think about before making those choices. I think a lot of times for both men and women, sometimes we just go into things without really fully logically thinking of that situation to kind of prepare yourself before going into it. We kind of do things, the reverse. Like we do things, we learn, and then when things go bad, we look back in hindsight and if coulda, woulda, shoulda. So we just want to, so that's why I just want to state that real quick for everybody out there that's watching. The nature and purpose. I'm not advocating for men out there to date single moms, but if you do make this choice, at least we have a couple right here that are the exception to the rule, and they can provide how they did it, and we can have a conversation that assists anybody out there. But at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to your choice, and you're going to have to take accountability for the own choice that you're going to make. But that's from my end. I just want to state that real quick. I'll pass it on to Daniela. As far as like the purpose for tonight's show, you can go ahead and I'll pass it to Alicia as well. But go ahead, Daniela.
Yeah, so agreeing sort of back and forth with Will in the sense of talking about putting this podcast together. To me, the ultimate purpose of this topic for me anyway is that we're not here to tell every man to look at single mothers and just go, hey, go date single mothers. The whole purpose is if you find yourself in this situation where you're in the dating market, the whole purpose is come across you find yourself in this. Did that just echo? Sorry, well, yeah, so the whole purpose is if you find yourself, in a situation where you're dating a single mother, you see potential of good foundation for a long-term relationship as a man, there are certain things to look out for. There are certain things that you have to know in yourself as a man that these are going to come up, and the way you react to them is highly, it's absolutely important to how the relationship will develop on. It's a lot easier to date women who have no children, but also in saying that there are ways of dating single mothers if that's what you're looking at, if that's where you are in life, and that's the long-term commitment that you want to make. that's what we're here to provide clarity on. So, if for anyone who's looking at the content and thinking, "Oh, we're here to justify, why you should date single mothers," that's not my standpoint.
Yeah.
If it was up to me to say anything, if you as a man are still developing your value as a man and who you are in the world, keep away from single mothers, because that relationship will ruin the way you look at the world in general and how you look at women. And you are most likely to go down a route where you demonize women in general for certain behaviors that you weren't at the time ready for in value. So that's where I think what we bring to the conversation. Yeah.
No worries. I know. I just want to thank you for stating that, Daniela. And I just, I know a lot of men out there probably gonna watch this. If they don't get the full context of a conversation, they might call us
Beta.
But regardless, yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's out there. Like for me, it's like I think like we should always have a solution for everything, and regardless how challenging things are, I don't think the statistics are good. We should be able to be aware of whatever you decide to do in life. You have to be aware of what you're gonna pursue. But you shouldn't always base everything on statistics, because at the end of the day, we're human beings. At the end of the day, I know, Daniela, we had a conversation. Everybody know I'm Tongan. I'm trying to make it big on YouTube. Statistically, for a guy that grew up in Tonga to come to America, no papers, immigrant, and to pursue a career and to make a successful YouTube channel, statistically, if I would have listened to all the statistics, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. But I've decided to. But I did look at the statistics and look at why what are the reasons why this statistic exists, and I kind of like look at the behaviors of what certain people did to make that statistic, and I kind of learned of kind of things I can avoid if I do want the best chance to succeed. And what I want to provide for this week's show is, even though all the statistics show that you shouldn't date single moms, and you made it clear, especially if you're a man and trying to build a purpose, but at the end of the day, is if you decide to make that choice, at least you can try to mitigate the risk. And that's the purpose of the show. And on the title, we're just here to mitigate the risks, to give you the best possible chance to make things work out. All right. I do have a person to jump on real quick. Lonnie.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing, Lonnie?
Good.
On real quick, jumping on part of the show. I appreciate you. I'll give you some time later on to introduce yourself real quick, Lonnie. But we'll go right into it. So what we're gonna do today on tonight's show, we're gonna address all the reasons and most of the reasons, but we'll also address the statistics as well. Obviously, there's a lot of men out there that are saying these are the reasons why we shouldn't date a single mom. What I want to do is I want to address all the reasons, and then also ask the couple as well, Daniela and Alisi, how did they figure out? How did they figure out that situation to make it work in their relationship? So the first one I'm gonna address real quick, and I hope you guys are ready. I'm gonna play a quick video, something I saw on YouTube of this guy that he made content on why not to date single moms. That video real quick. Share screen. Okay. Let me see. Nope. Let me know if you guys can see this.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Buying pants sucks. It should not be.
Her kids.
All right.
Yeah. I watch a lot of his content.
All right. Can you? All right. Give me 1 second, yo. So, you know this guy, Daniela?
Yeah.
surprising when you click on YouTube, there's no content. Oh, this guy right here.
Mother, I'm not going to, and she will.
All right, so can you
think
guys see the
you're-
video?
You're still stuck on the. I think your share screen's frozen.
Oh, okay. Let me go back out. And let me go. All right, let me go back. Remove. Okay, let me double check real quick.
You need to get that ad block on your
What's up,
browser.
guys?
What?
You need to get that ad block on your browser.
Oh, yeah. You see it moving now? Do you see it moving now? Is it moving now?
Nah. Nothing's come up. We're still on
No?
the same original one.
Okay. All right. So I'll play the video. I'll play the video a little bit
Just
later.
play the audio. Just play the audio.
Okay, I'll play the audio.
But we can sort of pick from it.
All right. So this is the audio of the guy that
Mother.
Can you guys hear it?
Going to try to land
Okay, yeah. It's
Yep,
coming
okay.
back and forth.
you no matter what.
Can you hear that?
It's
Yeah,
breaking
it
in
comes
and
and
out.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Can you hear it? Can you see the guy?
Okay. Yep.
All right. Okay. All right.
Say and do anything. Got a good job or a little business or what have you. So what is her incentive going to be? To land you. That's her incentive. She's going to try to land you no matter what. And she will say and do anything to please you. Anything to get you.
All right. So did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the biggest thing I saw, the biggest reason I saw when I was listening to men, not only my personal life but also men on the content space, what their biggest risk or their concern of dating a single mom is they're afraid that the single moms have put themselves in a situation where they don't want a man but they need a man, because right now they're a single mom. Most guys won't take them seriously. Obviously, you know, for most single moms, statistically, they struggle financially because there's only one income to support the family instead of having two parents. So statistically, for a lot of single moms, they struggle financially. So they have an incentive. They have a financial incentive to be able to get a man. So what a lot of men are saying is, how do I know there's a genuine desire that she really wants me? That she really wants me, that the feelings is sincere, that she loves and cares for me, or she's just using me for a certain amount of time before she moves on to find another man. Because statistically, for a lot of women, you know, if they do get married again or they go into relationships with single moms, it doesn't work out and they move on to another guy. So that's one of the main concerns for a lot of guys is, if I'm going to financially take the full responsibility of dating a single mom, how do I know? Like, how do I know that she's not going to use me? And I've heard this from single moms, like they know they've gotten to a certain point, you know what, I'm just going to find any guy out there, any guy that will willing to save me, quote unquote, save me a situation. And unfortunately, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of women out there, they just want to be saved. And the men that they choose, not necessarily the men they want, it's just the men they have to settle for. And I believe that if you settle for somebody you don't really want, that relationship is not going to work out, because you're not with somebody that you generally care for and want. So that's why those relationships don't ever work out. So for a lot of men, that's why we have to say you have to be aware and protect yourself, because unfortunately for a lot of guys, if they don't work on themselves, like Daniela said, and build value, so you can be able to have some options to pick the woman that you want. I think for a lot of times, for a lot of guys, they pick single moms because that's like the only option they got. So they got to go with what they have. And unfortunately, for a lot of single moms, they don't share a genuine desire for this guy because she's looking to be saved, and there's a need, there's an incentive, financial incentive to be able to come in and take the responsibility of her and her child. So that's my but that's the first question. How if a man wants to date a single mom, how can he figure out how to know that she's not using him She's not just settling for him, but there's a genuine desire that she wants him in her life. And Daniela, Alicia, if you guys want to go ahead, and I'll come back to you, Lani, and you can add your piece as well.
Go.
I'll go first. This is why I'm a big advocate of dating before relationship. And as a man, especially when you are in the dating market and you find yourself dating single mothers, you should date before you get into a relationship. And you should make and state your intention as truthfully and as honest as you can right from the get-go. When we speak on, if it's women, when we speak on women who are looking at a way out of single parenthood, once you sort of make your intention clearly from the beginning, as I've mentioned in past podcasts, I'm here to have fun. I'm very ambitious. I'm career driven. If you want that, you can have that. If you don't, let's move on. Let's not waste time. When you put that to someone who is looking for a way out, they are not going to stick around and entertain that, especially if you prolong that dating phase for more than 6 months, which I've shared in the podcast. We met, I think, roughly around this month, when we first started.
What month are we in? April?
April, yeah. And it didn't take until December of that year for me to ask her out. And that's a very long time for anyone to look at a way out. If the potential is there, but you have no clear indication of moving forward to that. So as a man, I think you should date before you get into a relationship, but it's also a good time for you to look at the woman and the quality of the woman that you're with, whether they're single parent or not. This is a perfect time for you to vet them in the sense of who are they behind closed doors, what are their behaviors like, attitude like, and how are they towards you? And not only that, how are they towards their children? Because that gives you a key indicator of where their priorities are. And not only that, if you're looking at long-term relationship, the way that they behave towards their children in that phase will give you a good indication of what she will be like when you're in a relationship with her towards you and any children that you have when you get into a relationship. So it's not rocket science. And I think what we're doing now with young men, and it's led mostly by a lot of feminine men and women, is that we are bringing this notion of falling in love is what you gauge relationship with. It's not. It's what quality does the other person bring to you, and what can you do to complement those quality to make the relationship work. And I always talk about compromises. Compromises are a two-way street. You should never compromise to the point where one person holds more power than the other. And if you do give in certain situation, it should be addressed immediately after that compromise has gone either direction. So the way that I look at our relationship and just how I analyze the situation right before we got into a relationship, I didn't care much about love in that sense. I cared about what this woman brought to my life and me giving her boundaries. And it was very simple. My boundaries were, when I'm working, I'm working. Please do not hassle me. When I do find the time, we'll get together, do whatever it is that we have to do, but please do not hassle me while I'm working. And not only that, do not bring your kid around. We're still dating. I do not want to add an imprint to a child who has no grip on what the world is from an adult point of view. And I do not want to imprint a memory on him that is just come and go. One of the biggest things that I'm so grateful for is that my parent gave me a sense of how truly important having a family was, and the role and responsibility of what a male figure is in a family, especially as a father. And that's how I gauge my relationship moving throughout my adult life. Now, I'm not saying that these were always the way that I looked at it, but in the sense of where my relationship was at its beginning and where it is now, I didn't choose her for love. I chose her because she was a feminine woman. She catered to me and she left me alone, because ultimately, and this is the logic behind it, if I am so busy at whatever it is that I'm chasing, whatever it is, whether it's my career, an entrepreneur, a business, if I'm busy right now and we are able to make that dynamic work, I will be able to invest the same amount of energy towards our relationship once we fully commit. And knowing that you support me even before a relationship lets me know that that's going to be a consistent thing once we get into a relationship. So you can't predict these things, but you can look for telltale signs of certain women who have those extra packages that they bring to the table, and know when to avoid them or when to say, hey, this is not going to work. Let's not waste each other's time. You know, go look for what you need as a woman, and I'll go look for what I need as a man. So vetting is very important, especially as a man in a dating market where majority of your suitors are single mothers.
Daniela, quick question I want to ask you. So I know when you were pursuing Alisi, when you guys were dating, the dating phase, what did Alisi show you, or a situation that happened to let you know what, this is actually something that's genuine. It's not coming from a place of she's looking for a savior, like that video said. A lot of men have that fear that a woman is just picking you because she needs you and she's looking to be saved. So like, did that ever cross your mind? Maybe she's she's a single mom. Maybe she's just choosing me because I'm probably the best guy out there for her right now. And like, did you ever cross your mind? And what did she show you? Do you know what? This is something that's genuine. This is something that I can see going long term, and I don't feel like she's just gonna use me for my resources, because that's her option right now, her situation right now.
Yeah. So when you hear a lot of men talking about, try and figure out whether these single mothers are looking at a way out, they're looking at utilizing you as a form of resources to cater to her and her children, that should be an obvious thing to any man when you're dating a single mother. It logically makes sense that when you have a child and you're a woman, it makes logical sense to me as a man that she will be looking for the support that she that she didn't get, whether that's financially or not. So when we look at it, it's not like only certain single mothers look at it in that way. I think majority of single parents look at it in that sense when they go into a relationship. It's not just I need to find someone that I match with and we can create a long-term relationship. It's also to share the burden of what it is that you have as children. And if you go into a relationship, whether you're a single mother, a single dad, not looking at it in that sense, then why are you even looking for a relationship? Right? Because obviously your children comes with you as a whole package. So when you do go looking in for a relationship, that should be something that crosses your mind. So from a man's perspective, that should be the reality of the way that you look at it from the get-go anyway. But what are the qualities that are going to give you an easier time in terms of taking on this responsibility that is another child, that is not biologically yours? And not only that, dealing with a imprinted experience that didn't go so well, but resulted in a child. Because that's another huge factor that brings a lot of complication when you're in a relationship with a single mother, is that their guard is high, and it's much higher than a normal woman with no kids. So those are the things that you look at as a man and think, is this something that I can mitigate enough with certain behavior, certain values, or if it's not, then move on. And I think people should stop demonizing men who chooses to go the other way. If you choose to not date single mothers, that's on you. That's your prerogative, and that's fine. It's fine. But for the men who chooses to go this route, it's the same thing. And not only that, I think when we make content, when we look at people who make content in terms of dating single mother versus dating single women who have no children, they're forgetting a big factor that is beyond what it is being talked about. Every relationship requires work. And my own personal belief is that as a man, if your relationship fail, you should look and be accountable for what has led to that and how it failed, and your responsibility in the way you build your value you should look at it from a standpoint of, I created that relationship to fail. So what the hell am I going to do for the next time that I end up in the same situation? So I think I'm tangenting it off on a bit, and, jump on if you feel like.
Yeah.
But as a man, you should already come to term when you date a single mother that they are looking to share the burden.
Yeah.
That should be something that is already in your mind. Why? Because they already have a child that another man has either decided to go their own way or the relationship didn't work, regardless of whatever the reason is. What you should do is vet these women in the sense of, if this is a woman I want to get into a long-term relationship with, what are the qualities that she's showing me, and not just me, her child, that will make her the woman that I can make compromises with, I can grow with, I can see myself marrying long-term, and we create a family together.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like that. I like what you said. For men, we need to understand biologically from women, that's what they look for in a man, is they look for a man that can come to be that provider, protector. So that's a normal behavior for all women. Okay. Yeah, you just come to terms with it. And like, it's logical, right?
Yeah.
She's by herself. She has a baby. Obviously, she needs somebody to come in and take that responsibility. So you should understand that already comes with the territory if you're gonna date a single mom. So don't try to look at it negative way. Just ask yourself, if this is something that you're willing to bear, and that's gonna come down to you. Okay.
It's your choice, right? As a man, it's your choice. Do you want to bear the responsibility of looking after a child that you have no biological bond with? If the answer is yes, then figure out a way. If the answer is no, move on. That's fine. It's your choice.
Okay. No worries. Thank you for sharing that, Daniela. But Alicia, I'm gonna allow you to share your thoughts real quick. What do you think? Being a single mom yourself, obviously, I'm sure you have a lot of friends, but in your personal experience, did you ever feel that way where your situation, or like you feel like that you were just in a situation that you just wanted any guy out there, doesn't matter who it was. I need somebody to come in right now in my life to take care of me, and you didn't really care about your genuine feelings for that man. You just saw him as a resource. Did that ever come across your mind? Because that's what a lot of men are saying. So I'm interested to hear. What do you think? Go ahead, Alicia.
I was different. Well, I wouldn't say different. So I had left an abusive marriage, and my thought wasn't, I didn't want to be in a relationship. I was just gonna do me, focus on me and my son. My son would go to my dad's on the weekends. I would go out with my friends. That was my free time. I jumped on Tinder, swiped, had fun. But there wasn't a point where I was like, I'm going to keep swiping, or I'm going to go out and I'm going to find a guy to come and look after me and my son. Because before I met him, I was doing fine, not perfect financially, but I was good. I was somewhere living, my living situation was good. Financially, I was all good. Meeting him was just bonus. But
it's the greatest time of your life.
Totally. Anyways. But no, yeah. It was I didn't have that in my mind to find a man to come in and look after me and my son. Because I left a shitty relationship or a marriage, and for me it was just I'm just gonna focus on me and my boy. That's it. I had a great family support. My dad was always there for me. He would always come and pick up my son whenever he wanted to, really, but mostly weekends. My son's father at the time was, he was meh. He's changed now, I'll give it to him, but he's still meh.
And I want to chime in on that. And this is a big reason why there's a certain amount of men who find it very difficult to date single mothers. Because usually the story is when they come out of, abusive relationship or whatever the scenario may be, usually in the negative sense, they are in terms of free to a certain extent, and they, go out and have their party, they reclaim a bit of their youth and their freedom and whatnot. And it is very hard, especially when, single mothers or single parents who decides to go that way don't want to be in a relationship per se. Last one's ended badly. So this is also a big problem that the men who are dating these women are finding, is that if you are not strong in the sense of the values that you build it yourself, you will find these women intimidating, and fairly so, in the sense that they bring a certain factor into your life where you take it or leave it, sort of thing. So it's up to you to choose, okay, is this, like mentioned before, is this something that I'm willing to bear or not? The biggest difference to, I guess, our personal sort of relationship was that I never looked at that sort of behavior as I guess as an attack to who I was and as who I am as a leader in terms of masculinity and what I bring to the table. So I think one of the first thing that I figured out very earlier on was that there was a level of respect that was given to me by her, purely based on out of the dynamic that we created between each other throughout our dating. So I think when you date as a man and the respect is not there even 9 months after, you should not pursue it any further, or you should not pursue that woman, because in that specific time, she's still looking at enjoying somewhat of her freedom, and it'll be very difficult if you haven't learned what it is that, or who it is that you are bringing to the table in terms of what you want out of the relationship.
Okay. All right. No worries. Thank you for sharing that, Daniela. And Alicia, I do have some questions for you. I'll come back to you guys, but I want to pass it on to our public guest, Lonnie. Shout out to Lonnie real quick. Lonnie, thank you so much for taking the time and jumping on and be part of the conversation real quick. I just want to read out some chats real quick for everybody out there. Underground Road says some single mothers will hesitate at times and will remain single because there are men who seek single mothers to prey on their children. That's a fact. All right, that is a fact. Yeah. Any more comments? Everybody out there, if you guys have some comments, drop it in the live chat, and then I'll be able to read it real quick and add on to our conversation. Fatty, I see you, man. Thank you. I'll come back to your super chat donation, Fatty, real soon after Lonnie's response. I got you on the question that you want to ask, but I'm gonna pass it to Lonnie. Lonnie, what's your thoughts on our discussion tonight? Especially for we started off with a lot of men out there who want to date single moms, but they're afraid to be abused by their resources and not really have any genuine feelings or concerns for them. They just the women who are single moms just want to use them, and that's what a lot of the men are saying. So, what's your thoughts, Lonnie? Oh, you're mute. You're on mute. Oh, hold up.
Okay.
That was me.
How about
You
now?
good.
Okay. So I was a single mom. I've been married. My ex-husband was not a very good person. So I'm remarried now, so that's kind of my experience. And I really think that the topic that you guys are talking about is really valid. And I totally understand why men would think like that. Because when I was dating my now husband, that was the first thing some of his family members would tell me. We'd be like, "Oh, like you're so lucky you have a man now that that can take care of your kid," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess." So I mean, I definitely understand where that fear comes from, and I don't think it's it's stupid or anything, if that makes sense. I also feel that, so I was raised Mormon, and I went to yeah. So I was raised Mormon, and my ex-husband and I actually met at a BYU school in La, and that's where he met. He ended up being very abusive, and we got divorced. And so what Daniela said about the whole dating thing when you're dating a single mom, I think that's great advice. And I wish that when I was dating my current husband that we did that more, because being Mormon and coming from an institution like BYU, where family is a huge thing. So even when I was dating my ex-husband, it was like, well, you date a couple months and then you get married. You step from the fire. I forget the saying, but you move pretty quickly. Mormons at least do, from my experience. So when I dated my current husband, I kind of had that same mentality when we were dating, and now I regret it because I see how toxic that was. So I really think that what Daniela and your wife were saying, it's absolutely correct. Like, you should be dating and you should be, looking out for certain things. And I think for men, you know, when you're dating a single mom, ask what she needs. I mean, not what she needs, financially, but see what, she wants. And and I think women as well, like, if because when I remember before I was dating my current husband, there were some guys I tried dating that didn't want to date me because I was a single mom, and that's fine. That's being dating a single mom, and getting remarried to one or getting married to one is really hard. And it also depends a lot on, like, from my experience, on what type of relationship the single mom has with her, I don't want to say baby daddy or her ex, because I feel like that too has a big um part on how the relationship will go. If that does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 And I have single mom friends whose fathers of their children kind of just fell off the face of the earth, and they were able to freely move and do whatever they wanted. And then, some dads, they want to stay around. So it makes, the relationship or the dating process a lot more difficult. So, I mean, I understand why men would be afraid to date women like us, because it's hard. It is hard. And especially for us women, I feel like, because in my experience, my oldest child was, I have, she's my daughter. So I feel like also for single moms who have, daughters, it's a little bit more complicated sometimes, because there is that predatory factor,
Yeah.
and like, some people think, like, some men do date single moms just to get to their children. And but I do think that, though, if you are gonna date a single mom, you really do have to know what you want, and you gotta be in it for the long haul. And I think, a lot of single moms will, at least from my experience, will either tell you, hey, look, this is what we need, this is my situation, and take it or leave it. And it's okay if you don't want that, because not everybody does.
All
So
right. No worries. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Lonnie. I really appreciate that. I have a question for Lonnie and Alicia. So, Lonnie, how long was it from when you left your ex-husband to when uh you met your future husband? How long was that time period?
okay, you really want to go there? It was, it wasn't very long at all. So my ex-husband,
Just how long? Just
so
how long? It's the time
uh
period.
3 months. 3 months. Well, because we
Okay.
weren't we weren't we weren't
Just
divorced though. Yeah. So
Oh, okay, okay. No, no,
yeah.
I'll come back to you because there's a specific reason why I asked that. So
Yeah.
you said for
Mm.
you it's 3 months.
Mm.
Alicia, what was the time period for you when you left your ex and then you met Daniela?
About 6, 7 months.
7 months. So the reason the reason why I asked that question is because for you guys, because I know Alicia, you said that you never felt that way, where you never felt like that. You never had the perspective that you needed to find a man. Lonnie said the same thing, and the reason why I asked that question because it does make sense why you would say that because you was 3 months before you met your husband. You only were single for, I mean, you only were like on your own for 6, 7 months. But I do realize that for a lot of women who are single moms, that 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Do you think that the longer a single mom is single in the dating market as she gets older to her 20s, 30s, don't you feel that need that I need to find a man kind of starts building up? And then when you get to a point, look, I'm just looking for somebody to save me. I'm just gonna settle for anybody.
Hmm.
Because I think your situation is kind of different because it was a quick turnaround, right? And
Mm.
you found the man of your dreams.
Yeah.
But for the reality, for a lot of women, they either don't ever find a guy, or like I said, like there's a big time period, years. And I think for a lot of women, obviously I do know that we're all human beings, we're social creatures. I know for women, like they have an understanding that the older they get, it's already hard enough being a single mom, but it's gonna be harder being an older single mom. So that puts a lot of pressure on them, and then sometimes they're just looking for any guy, and the first guy they find, they just jump on him, and like
Yeah.
that video said that I played. Do you see any truth of what I said? Like it does matter how long the big difference that single moms in the dating market. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay, do you want to expand a little bit, Alice?
Um, I have friends, say,
Yeah.
who are older than me, and they've been single for, how old's the youngest? 5 years.
Yeah.
And she's still at this point now where she wants to be in a relationship, but it's just hard for her to go find or even date, really.
Because the
Is she at the-
imprint of the
Right.
the
Yep.
fathers has left enough pain, I guess.
Oh yeah, she still gets really, or some of them are still very triggered by their past relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very triggered. And this particular friend of mine, a few of them actually, have not moved on because of what they endured in their relationships previously.
And that's a
Alright,
red
alright.
flag that you should look for as a man.
Yeah.
I mean,
So do you think?
if you,
Go ahead, Daniela. Go ahead. Yep.
I mean, that was part of my vetting process was, as much as any abuse has happened in the past, to me, if you're out dating for long-term relationship, you should at least try and move on to a certain extent. So one of the criteria that I looked at when I was dating, especially if I was a single mother, is how bad or how good did they talk about, their child's father to a certain extent. And either direction can show you some very risky things. Like, say, if she talks shit about him all the time, then that's something that I don't want to get into a relationship with that person. But if they speak so highly of that person, it also provides a risk for me in the sense of, is there a possibility that they might end up together? So how my solution in that sense is that I look for those telltale signs, but also at the same time, I make it known that I'm not here to replace whoever it is that, your children's father was. But also at the same time, I know that at one point the children deserve to have a relationship with said person, given that they have made the right move to change the way that they are. If they were abusive or whatever it is, that child, I don't care about the adult, but that child deserve that relationship and get to decide whether they want them in their life or not. And I think that's also one of the things that men can't handle in general, who come from a normal sort of family where mum and dad was home. They weren't exposed to that life. So let me just pretense this. I come from a family where I was adopted out by my auntie, and there was 3 of us that were all adopted. My auntie or mum and dad to me were both single parents, and they met at one stage of their life. They both had child outside of their relationship, and they made it work until mum passed away. So a majority of my own experience have made me somewhat biased in the sense that I don't look at dating and single mother the same way that a guy who comes from somewhat a normal household where mum and dad were at home, or they had some strong figure either way. So I guess I have to include that because it might confuse some men in the sense of, but I will never get that feeling of, raising another man's child, and that's very normal. And the only reason why I am providing, the advice that I do is because I have the bias that I have, but also at the same time, I'm doing my best not to be unbiased by stating that you don't have to date them if it's too much work. And if it's something that you don't want to pursue, don't pursue it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Daniela. Lani, yeah, you want to add
Oh,
on?
oh no, I wanted to ask Alicia a question. So now that I know that Taniela came from that kind of background, did that help you? I don't want to say like choose Taniela, but was it easier for you to kind of see a future with him knowing he came from a family like that? That the dynamic wasn't like mom, dad, biological in the same house.
In a
And
way,
also being Islander.
yes.
Sorry.
In a way, yes, but I don't know. I think like I was made aware of how he was raised. He was adopted. His family here in New Zealand, his biological family. Um, that was always in the back of my mind. But I think um, just who he was when we were dating, and and what he set at the start for us both, and what he wanted, and we talked about things openly and communicated. Um, but and yeah,
I just
thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Lani.
Oh, no, I just thought it was interesting because my husband comes from a similar background. His mom was a single mom and he has an older sister and he was raised by his stepfather and even his biological father married a woman that was a single mother. So at least like in my experience, it was like I would say it was part of kind of like the vetting process for me when I was dating him because knowing that he was in an environment growing up that wasn't, like mom and dad. And my husband is from Samoa, and not to be like judgmental, but when it comes to single mothers in the islands, it's very difficult, I find. And some of the
Mm.
older generations are very judgmental when it comes to single moms, especially if you're younger. And knowing that my husband, one was from Samoa, and two, he came from that kind of, non-traditional background. Like at least for me, it was easier for me to see a future with him because I knew he kind of physically, not physically, but he kind of he understood more what it took to be, my partner, seeing that he saw his dad be that type of partner to his mom, if that makes sense. So,
All
Mm.
right.
yeah.
No worries. I want to ask you guys because I know you brought up the example of your friend Alicia that she's been what been a long period of time that and she still hasn't found a partner. Is it safe to say for you guys like is that for a lot of men right now they're watching and they want to pursue a single mom and they want to mitigate the risk? Is that safe to say that if the longer a single mom's been in the dating market, is that a red flag for a lot of men? Because if the woman who's a single mom being single for too long, obviously that there's a reason why that she hasn't been able to attract a man. A guy, it's 3 months, 7 months, there wasn't an issue. But for the single moms out there that for a long period of time, I think would it be safe to say to assess, what? She's been a single mom for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Is should that be a red flag for a guy?
She's just
What do
gonna
you think?
step out.
Yeah, what do you think, Daniela? Oh, yeah, you're mute, Daniela.
Yeah. Okay, so this question sort of pairs up with one prior to that, which was how long did it take, for Alicia to sort of meet me after the divorce? So it is a lot easier in terms of dating women who've got children, uh, sort of outside of the relationship not too long, and not only that, I met her when she was 23 and I was 22, so that also accounts for a fact.
Mm.
That I think our dynamic sort of gelled in the way that it did. So the longer it is to find a relationship and to be in a relationship, it is a red flag because it should begs more question. Why were you single for that long? Were you actively dating, or were you just not dating at all? What experience do you know, or what have you learned from the previous relationship that you can bring into the one that we are potentially creating? It is a red flag in the sense that either you haven't had the experience to learn from past experience, or why is it that you are not able to find long-term relationship? So, and I think people sort of look at red flags and sort of think of be delusional about them, but they are essentially your boundaries, right? So you should set your boundaries and abide by them. So to me, I think anyone who's out of that sort of for that long, you should ask some serious questions, and that shouldn't stop you necessarily, but you should ask the question because they're very important to you and the dynamic that you bring to the table, because it affects the way you handle the relationship, which is two people together. And if you're sitting in the relationship sort of in your head with unanswered questions, that becomes problematic. So this is tangenting off, but one of the biggest thing that we've always sort of implemented right from the beginning is just communication. And it's in the sense of, I normalize using swear words around each other and just name calling, in the sense of we call each other. When people listen to our conversation and how we joke with each other, they think we're probably the most delusional people in the world, because it's all fair game. She calls me whatever she wants to call me, I'll call her whatever she wants to call me, in the way that it's just normal conversation and we're jokingly roasting each other. It's how we see it. But the idea with that is that when we do get into a serious argument, we are not hell-bended on you swore at me or you called me this. If it becomes, and I'm not saying everyone should deploy this sort of mindset, but that's how I've dealt with, okay, it's obviously important enough that we're arguing about it. Let's not get stuck at the word you're saying at me, but let's sort of figure out why it is that we have this issue and move forward. And that's the thing that you had to realize as a man. If you don't deal with how words are being thrown around in your relationship, it can become a bit of a issue when you get into it. Pardon me.
All right. I think that's something that you guys brought up with your friend that hasn't moved on from her ex, right? I think for me, for myself, even when I'm dating, if I meet a woman that hasn't been dating, been single for a long period of time, for me that's a red flag, because I believe that if you're somebody that's healthy, you have some good value, you're gonna attract people to date, and you're gonna have some meaningful relationships. But if you're not in relationships long term, it's feeling. I think for a lot of men, for me personally, you should kind of like consider that. I do have a question for Fatty. He dropped a super chat real quick. Shout out to Fatty. There's actually a question that I was going to bring up later, but we might as well address it right now. What Fatty said: did you meet your current? I'm sorry, not that one. The first one. Okay, this one real quick. How did you deal with the baby daddy drama imprint? All right, because it was actually a topic I was going to bring up later, but since Fatty brought it up, let's might as well dive right into it. A lot of the concerns for a lot of men are saying is a lot of women who are single moms that that daddy, the DNA or that daddy imprint of their first baby daddy. A lot of women, it's hard for them to overcome it, to move on from it. And for a lot of men, especially that they made content that their experiences with women is like, even though they're dating with them, but a part of them still wants to get back with the baby daddy, because for a lot of women, it's really hard to move on from somebody that you had a child with, right? It takes a lot for a lot of women. So my question to you ladies is, what was your experience with moving on from a man that you guys had children with to move on to another man that you guys currently have now? Was that hard? Was that difficult? And also, if you want to keep it honest, were there certain times in a relationship where like a part of you still want to go back with the physical baby daddy? Because a lot of women, like, preferably that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to be with one to raise your kids with the guy that had with the biological father. But yeah, that's a question that Fatty brought up. Thank you, Fatty, for your super chats. I'm gonna ask the ladies real quick. What's their thoughts about that? I'll start with you, Lani, before I move on to Alisi.
Oh, okay.
Was it hard for you to move on from another guy that you had kids with to a new guy?
No.
No,
No, it wasn't. No.
I everything for
All right.
me.
So okay. I'll start with Lani, and I'll come back and I'll come to you, Alisi. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Well, one, me and like I said earlier, I'm Mormon. I came from a Mormon background. So when I dated my ex-husband, it was very short, like a couple months. I got pregnant out of wedlock, got married, it became abusive. I opted out. So it, I don't really consider like my first marriage to be like a proper marriage. It was like a courthouse kind of thing. Um, so there wasn't, to me, like I never, to this day, would never go back to him. You cannot pay me $1 billion. So that was never an issue for me. I will say though, from the trauma of being in a relationship with my ex-husband, I feel like that kind of was more significant than being in an actual marriage with my ex, if that makes sense.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So okay. So for you, it was like hell no, hell to the no.
Hell no.
Yeah, no.
All right. All right. Okay. But let me pass it to Alicia. Alicia, what do you think about the question? Yeah. Did you ever experience that? Moving on from the biological father to
No.
Daniela. No.
No.
And why?
I fell out of love. The marriage was very, very abusive. And my last straw was the last physical abuse that he did. Was just the final straw. I mean, a few times before that, I was already done. But that last one that he did was in front of my son and in front of my mother. And that for me was just like, nah, I'm not going to tolerate this. I don't want to deal with it. And I basically just said, get the fuck out. I'm done.
Mm.
And even to meeting Daniela, it was, no. Hell no. I could
Okay.
never.
No worries.
But this
Yeah.
is I think this question is also equally important for the men, right? Because these are what will play on your insecurities. When you come into a relationship with a single mother as a man, these are some of the things that will sort of play in your head as a man, right? So how do you deal with it? And this is part of the reason when you do the After Dark show, it's quite important to talk about, and even just a normal Wednesday podcast when I jump on. Every couple, especially men who date single mothers and are in relationship with them, you should look at how you are with your partner sexually, and you should be open in the way that you explore your sexuality together. Why? Because as much as your partner or the woman may not understand how these things sort of work behind, biology, mentally, emotionally, you can understand it when you see certain behaviors. So, I think earlier in our relationship, one of the things that was we had to really deal with moving forward was the way that I would step in and discipline, our son. Used to be some major pushback, and when you have those major pushback, you have to acknowledge that yes, mama's just trying to protect her, her child, but at the same time, there's a reason why you're both in a relationship, right? And to me, if I'm in a relationship with you, this means it's long term, and this is pretty much, we're looking at building a family together and moving on with life. So it comes to you as a man that you should be able to accept that that's going to be an issue that will arise, but also have the emotional intelligence to acknowledge it, but also stand firm and say, hey, you're in a relationship with me for a reason. There are certain qualities that you see in me that has attracted you to who I am as a person. These are the same quality in the sense of discipline that I'm, trying to apply to our children. Back off, essentially. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to hurt your child, but let's communicate in terms of how you want to parent, how I want to parent. But essentially, there are qualities that you've obviously been attracted to. That's why we're in a relationship. It's the same thing that I want to pass on to our children. So, and that's why I said in the beginning, if you're a man and you haven't really built your sense of value to the point where majority of these things don't become an issue to you, don't date single mothers, because it's more problematic to you than anything. It'll give you some insecurities that you never thought that you have. Thinking about, shit, my wife had sex and had a child with another man will keep you up at night. And I'm serious. One of the things that I'm sort of grateful for in my own experience is that it got to a point where the way that I envision a leader and how I led my own life and the life of my own family, there was no room for insecurities. And if I ever notice any sort of insecurities creeping up, I've always managed to find solutions and how I can deal with it, and dealing with them together as a couple. So those are the things that you should ask yourself. If you are in that dating pool, you've got some work cut out for you. It's worth it if that's what you want, but at the same time, don't be delusional that it's going to be easy. It's not.
Okay, no worries. And quick question to Lonnie and Alicia. Obviously, for you guys, your relationship was so toxic that you guys already made a clear decision on be ready to move on. But obviously, do you guys see that with your friends or single moms? Do you think for a lot of is it hard for them to make that transition? Who their relationship wasn't as toxic or wasn't as abusive? They had like a more regular relationship. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Obviously, they left the relationship, but still a part of them still wants to be with the biological father. Do you see that? That's a common thing with a lot of your single mom friends. I saw with you, Lani. Go ahead, Lani.
To be honest, yes. Actually, no, because a lot of my friends were in abusive relationships, so a lot of them have the same experience as me. But my mom was a single mom, and she never dated after my dad passed away. And I'm 31 now, and so in the 30 years I've been alive, she's never once gone on a date or or actively pursued somebody else. So I do feel like for some girls it is hard, it is hard for them. So yeah.
Yeah, what's up with all these abusive relationships? Are they all Mormon?
Okay. Yeah.
That's a good point, right? Because you just speaking for them, you're going to deal with some of those. Those will leak out in the early stages of your relationship. You are going to act in ways that you didn't even think will trigger certain memories in the person that you are with in a relationship. So you have to take that into consideration when you go into dating, single mothers, especially coming from an abusive relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And learn how to communicate through in a way where it's healthy, that instead of disregarding those triggers, attend to them and also dismantle them in the best way that you can. Otherwise, it's going to be terrible. You are going to blame each other in the sense of, oh, you shouldn't be triggered by, I'm not the same person. You shouldn't be triggered because I'm not the same person that you were dating. But it is. It's just, unfortunately, that's how human nature works. We don't put a face to a certain trigger. It's just behaviors.
Yeah, and at least the same thing. Your friends, like, do you? Some of them that are single moms, do you see some of them struggling to move on from their biological father?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how did those conversations go? Like, what's usually how those conversations go?
I still um one friend I see almost every day, and still it's the regular conversation she likes to bring up a lot to talk about. Imagine if he was here to see this and that, and she'll do this. She will send photos. So both her the exes have moved on, have got families and whatnot. And she recently was her youngest one's birthday. She did like a little cute birthday party, took photos, sent it to him, and was like, and I asked her, why did you do that? She's like, oh, I want him to see what I'm doing by myself. And da this. And it was very, and not like a, here, look at what I did for our son, but in a pity way, like, fuck you. This is what I'm doing by myself. Go get fucked. This and that. And I'm just like, girl, stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
That's the wrong way of going at it. But yeah, no, very much yes.
Okay. No, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, if she's already in that mindset, then it's gonna be tough as if a new man tries to come in and right. So I think that's one of the things you should look for as a man if you're dating a single mom. If she's still, I think Daniela, you brought it up. If she's still talking about the ex, right? If she's about the past, that could be a red flag. How can you compete with somebody that she's really she's still thinking about it in the past? That's gonna be hard for the new guy. Lonnie, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to say, as much as people like to talk about how single moms should have a vetting process about when they date, other men or vice versa, I feel like men should also do the same thing with us single moms, because a lot of us come with really heavy emotional, I don't want to say damage, but a lot of it can be really heavy for us.
Yeah.
And I know in my relationship with my husband, and I hate to say this, but I was really toxic. And it was mainly because of the stuff that I went through with my ex-husband. Yeah, so I really feel like, as much as, a lot of people like to say, well, women need to vet, look out for these signs. Men need to do the same thing, because there are some, women out here that do hold grudges, and they're not the best, and or maybe they haven't healed from that negative or toxic relationship. So, it goes both ways.
Yeah. That's why we're making this podcast, because a
Yeah.
lot of guys made that choice, and then they look back at it, and then they're like, you know what, I messed up. Date a single mom. So we're just trying to provide some knowledge for all the men out there, things to consider before you make that choice, and things to look out for. We'll move on to the next question. So this is something that I do see if a lot of men, they always talk about of why not to date a single mom. I'm gonna play the video real quick. Let me know if you guys can see it. Can you see it? You guys see it?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna play it.
It's Josh. Today we're going to talk about why you should never date a single mom. I know this is going to bring a little hate, so wait till the very end before you decide to judge. So, reason number one is you are never going to come first. You can even ask them this or read a dating profile.
All right, so a lot of guys is they always say is they date a single mom, you will never come first. You're never gonna be a priority. You're gonna be like second fiddle or second hand to the children, and to her. Obviously, you guys talked about it before, and for me, my conversation with a lot of single moms, one of the biggest fears for a single mom to bring a man is you don't want the man to come in and something happen to one of your children, right? He comes in and abuses them. So that's why for a lot of women, they're very, very protective for their kids. But also from the man's perspective, is like, I'm trying to come in. You guys want me to fulfill 100% of responsibility of being the father. I'm fulfilling that with my financial resources. So I'm fulfilling all the responsibility and the burdens of being a father. But for a lot of these women, they don't let him to be the father. They don't allow him to discipline the kids. They don't allow him to raise the kids as his own, as how he wants to raise it as the father. So a lot of times, a lot of guys feel emasculated because she's actually the one running the whole relationship, and he's just there for all the benefits that she needs, the financial support, but he's not really being the man in the relationship because he's never considered a priority. But for a lot of guys, like, as men, we want to be the leader in a relationship. We want to, especially masculine, we want to be able to be the father in a relationship, and it's hard to do that in a relationship if the single mom never allows him to be a priority or doesn't make him feel a priority, and kind of undermines his authority, especially from the kids, because that's her kids. Because a lot of single moms, what they're saying, well, don't talk to my kids because that's not your kids. But the guy is like, what? But I'm here trying to be the father. I'm here fulfilling the responsibility. So this is something that I often see not only from the women, but also this is what a lot of men are bringing up. Why never to date a single mom, because she will never put you first. So let me start with the ladies real quick. What's your thoughts to that, and how did you navigate that with your own relationship with your new guy, with the new man in your life? I'll start with you, Alisi.
I'd say
As a man, you have to be the leader, essentially, right? She will bring those, and to me, in the sense of, I had to stand firm in the sense that this is a long-term relationship, and this is it for me. I see her as a woman that I want to build a family with, and this is crucial for our children, even though our son wasn't biologically mine, but at the same time. So I think that the biggest thing is that I had to sort of build my values in the sense that the proof is in the pudding, right? So the quality, the level of quality as a man that I bring to the relationship should be evident enough of the quality that I want to pass on to our son. So any sort of disciplinary effort that I put in is the way that she should look at it, engage it, in the sense that I'm not abusive. I'm not smacking our son 24/7 at everything and anything, but there are moments that I have to step in. But also at the same time, explain to her that the reason why I do a certain thing, or I talk to son in a certain way, is because these are the traits that lead up to it. When you allow, like, for example, one of our conversation, the other week was that our son's very athletic, but he's not a very academic suited boy. He just loves sports. He loves to play around, but the way that he can't focus on anything for too long. So that sort of led him down a path where his ability to communicate, and not only just communicate, but also his mathematical sense aren't developed to the point where I'm metricing of myself. So at 8 or 9 years old, which is how old my son is, there are certain capability as a kid that I was able to achieve at that age. So a lot of my metric comes from that. But at the same time, there are certain ways that we deal with it at home. So one of the exercises that we do as soon as he comes back from school is that he sits down and read, does a lot of maths and that sort of stuff. So one of the little behavior that I've noticed, from our son is that if I'm not in the space, he'll go away, be out of sight for 5-10 minutes, and then he'll come back in because he knows I'm not there, and stand in front of his mother. He knows full well that she's emotional. You're my baby. Okay, go watch TV and then go read, right? And as a mother, she often gives in more than she disciplines him. So when I start noticing that behavior, address it and say, hey, the reason why I'm so harsh in this sense is I understand what it's like to be a Pacific Islander trying to operate at higher level of functioning in society where it's predominantly, European. And one of the things that you need to bring to the table is communication and the way that you articulate words in general. Not only that, you have to develop some sort of critical thinking. And both English and maths is very crucial for that. But the biggest thing that you're allowing our son to do is not to be able to be disciplined. So when you look at the mums in that sense, and you're dating a single mother, they will always be protective, but you have to prove that, okay, you're in a relationship with me. There's a reason why I have certain qualities, but also, explain the ways of why you are doing the things that you're doing. Is it, as much as we say this as men, it also applies to us. We're not mind readers, same as the other person. So explain the way or the reason why you do certain things, right? So that is, to me, probably the way that you can get get that issue dealt with in a way. But it's communication, man. I think the biggest thing with our relationship that made it work the way it is was just communicating. The way that we communicated with each other was just right from the get-go, was no filters, just all on the table. When there's an important thing to talk about, we either address it in that moment, or we say, we communicate, I don't want to do this. I'm not in the capacity to do this right now. I'm probably too emotional to have a logical explanation of why I am behaving the way that I am. But please, I will come back to you and we'll talk this out, in a couple of hours, or, tomorrow or something. But yeah, communication is just, it's important, man. It's so important.
I want to ask Alicia real quick. So when you first, when you guys were obviously when you got out of your relationship, you had to take care of yourself and your kids. So your kids was a priority. What did Daniela do, or what trait did Daniela show or express for you? Do you know what? This is a guy that I think is a potential strong father for me, for the children, and you started to allow him to come into your life and also take that role. Obviously, you're not just gonna let any guy come in and fulfill that role of a father, especially to come in to be the leader of the household, to discipline your child. But obviously, you'll let that happen. Obviously, because you saw something in him that gave you the opportunity to make that decision. So what did you see? You know what? Right now, I'm single. It's got a relationship. I got to protect my priority now. It's me and my kids. Then you meet Daniela. Then it's something he showed you. You know what? I'm gonna make this decision to come in and come fulfill this role, and I'm gonna make him a priority because this is something I see in him. So what did you see? In how'd you get to that point, and what did you see, and how did you make that decision for yourself?
We dated for, say, 9 months before we made it official. Then he met my son at 6 months into our relationship. I didn't want him to meet my son for at least a year. My son was mine. It wasn't anything to do with him. He was my priority. But at the same time, my son stayed with my dad a lot. Well, he was with me for 6 months. In our first year together, my mum got very sick and she passed away. So that's the 6-month mark where Daniela came into the hospital with me, and everything just went downhill. But that was the first time he met my son and my whole family. But what I saw in him that, say, made me realize he was not the one, but say,
Good potential.
Potential, that's the word. Thank you. Was just how he carried himself, the dedicated he was, how he communicated, say, with his career, how we communicated, how he communicated with my son. It wasn't just like, talking to some kid you just fucking saw at the park or anything, or your friend's kid. It was just how he talked to our son. And I think a lot of along the way, I fell in love with that. Just him being, because my son didn't stay with us. I'll go back to that. My son didn't stay with us. After mum passed away, my son wanted to stay with my dad. So full time, my dad had guardianship over my son. And that allowed us to grow in our relationship. So even though I was a single mum, my dad looked after my boy.
Played a big part.
Played a very big part. And I guess that helped a lot for us in our relationship. I wasn't, what's the word?
So one of the things that is always great, especially for the single mothers going into a relationship, is if you have the support of your extended family, that helps a lot. And like our dynamic, when my father-in-law stepped in and sort of took over being a guardian of our son, I think for the first 3-4 years in our relationship, that helped immensely in the way that I think the dedication sort of was in the relationship. I think dynamically wise, it would have probably be a lot more harder if, our son was right there from the get-go throughout the relationship, because obviously her motherly instinct would kick in. But yeah, for single mothers wanting to getting back into dating, please get, whatever support that you can get. You need that. Why? Because there are certain things that you probably won't recognize when you're in the dating market, but you'll bring it on whoever it is that could potentially be someone that's good for you and could be healthy for your relationship with you and your children. But yeah, and this is why I have the stance that I have. I know there was a lot of perfect pieces that just dropped at the right time that made our relationship work. There was still an immense amount of work that we had to put in on the front end, but leading up to it, there was just pieces that moved in the way that they did that made it increasingly easier to deal with, and then versus majority of the relationship that people get into. And it's also the reason why I do my best to be unbiased when I talk about these situations. And when I say, if you don't, if you're a man who hasn't really built your values, or you don't come from the background that, I come from to a certain extent, just don't give yourself the mental challenge that it is. Yeah. Because it will change the way that you look at women in general. And that's why I advise against it. It's unhealthy for you, and it's unhealthy for whoever it is that you get involved with. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. No worries. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Alicia. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm gonna now everything makes sense now. I'm just learning more about your relationship. Everything's clicking. All right. Thank you. I'll pass it to. I'm gonna pass it to. I don't know about Underground Rose said. I love how Daniela says our son, such a good man. Underground Rose, thank you so much for always watching. I always appreciate you. And then Fatty was in the you fell in love with each other, with the kid on the side, and then you introduced the kid to the relationship. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys on the live chat. Always thank you for your comments. Press that like, subscribe button real quick. Yeah, if you want to be part of this conversation, the public link is posted on the top of the chat. Just click on it. You guys can jump on and be part of the discussion as well. Lonnie, what's your thoughts but about a lot of men saying, you know what, like, don't date single mom because she will never make you a priority, and you always become a second-rate citizen in that relationship. What's your thoughts about that? Oh, very good.
Now that I hear like Daniela and Alicia talk, it kind of makes me a little jealous because I was the exact opposite. So learn from my experience. Yeah, like I did not have. Um, but I totally get it, and I feel like the thing that they pointed out was having a support system as a single mom. Because in my experience, because my mom was a single mom, she was supportive, yet because she didn't pursue a relationship after my dad passed away, she wasn't as supportive of me finding somebody else, if that makes sense. So when I was dating my husband, it was hard because, in a sense, and he and I have talked about this for a very long time, but it's like we never got to really date each other. It was more like a family dynamic all the time. And when you're in a family dynamic and you're a single parent and you're trying to become, a two-parent household, it gets messy. It does. And it's really hard to, figure out if this person is the one for you when you have a kid on the side. You're trying to meet those kids' needs, and then you're trying to get to know the person that you're potentially trying to, be with in the long run. And so I definitely think that having a support system is a huge thing because it's really hard. And even now, like I know people say that, the longer you've been married, the more you find out things about each other. But I feel like because my daughter was, you know, kind of, I don't want to say my husband wasn't dating us, but there are times where it felt like that, because my mom wasn't, um, she wouldn't really, like, she'd watch my daughter for me, but it was very like, well, now you gotta pick her up, now you gotta do this. And I never really felt like we had the opportunity to really build that foundation in the beginning. Yeah, so I understand. And I feel like even when it comes to discipline, because we didn't really establish that foundation when my daughter got older, because when my husband met me, my daughter she was about a year old. And so she didn't know her biological dad at all. When we were together, when we were first together. So when he got older, or when my daughter got older, and he would try to discipline her, I would totally be like Mama Bear, come in like, so you don't get to have you know what I mean, which is really toxic. So don't do that. But and I feel that all stems from the fact that we weren't able to really set that foundation, and also because I didn't have that support system. So for all you guys out there who are dating single moms, make sure that's part of she has that, because it will get difficult. And it won't only because it won't only stress you out as a person, or as a husband and a father, but it will really wreak havoc on your relationship. Yeah.
All right, no worries. And I want to ask you, Lenny, like, when you moved on from your ex-husband, um, was it hard for you to allow your new husband to come in and be that man and be the priority in your with you and your child? Because like I said, for a lot of women, it's hard. So like they usually make the men a second. Like a man has to, like, for a lot of times, like as Daniela said, like you have to be a man of value and really strong to come in and take that role, and especially take overcome the concerns of a single mom, what she needs. With a lot of men who don't have value or not strong in their masculinity, they did a single mom with the mom already having these walls because of the past. They find themselves in a situation where they can't overcome it, and they find themselves like not a priority in the relationship. So did you experience that? When you first met when you met your future husband, that you didn't want to prioritize yourself first, and you made it hard for him to come in, and he had to prove himself first.
I don't want to say that I made it hard for him, but because I was living with my mom at the time, and again, my mom was a single parent. My mom made it really hard for him, and in turn, it made it hard for us. Does that make sense? Like, yeah.
Okay, so
And
for
with
you,
us,
okay, go ahead.
yeah. And then for us being, Polynesians and Islanders, like, especially again being raised in the church I was raised, I was taught at a very early age, like, well, what your parents say is what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? So for me, when my mom would like kind of put these thoughts in my head, like, oh, like you shouldn't put your husband first, you shouldn't do this, like you're a mom first, that really got to me. So in a way, I wouldn't say that I made it hard for him. Like I didn't try to make it hard for him, or I didn't see it that way. But looking back on how I acted, I did. But it
Okay,
wasn't intentional though. That's the thing. Like it wasn't like I didn't want him to be a father, because I did want him to be a father for my daughter. I just didn't know.
what did he show? What did he? If you made it hard for him, what did he do? What did he show for you to finally allow him to come in?
Um, Honestly, it took us having to move away from my family for that to really um happen. And we just moved away from my family this year, and we've been married for about 11 years.
Hmm.
So it took a long time for that to happen, just because my family, it sounds really bad, but my family had this really strong hold on the way I thought. So it wasn't until I was out of that environment was our relationship able kind of was our relationship and our family able to thrive more, if that makes sense. Because he was doing everything he should be doing. You know what I mean? Like, he's been taking care of my daughter since day one. He's financially been there for her. You know, he never wasn't there. You know, he always showed up. He was always the man and the father that he was supposed to be. It was me. I was the one that was making it hard for him. You know?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. No worries. Yeah, but thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Lonnie. I want to give a shout out to favorite fan, Get Lost. Thank you, Get Lost, for the donation all the way from New Zealand. Thank you for your donation, Get Lost. Always appreciate you jumping on the show, and I always love your opinions, whether we agree or disagree. But I always appreciate you jumping on. No worries. I'm gonna move on to the next concern for a lot of guys. But before I do bring up my next one, this one's a little bit more harsh for the single moms, but this is something I do see what a lot of men out there are saying. Daniela, was there anything that you wanted to bring up? I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to bring up something that you wanted to dive right into it.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah,
If
carry on.
anything comes to mind, let me know. But this is something I saw that a lot of men, they have this perspective against single moms. So I'm gonna play this clip real quick for you guys. Let me share it. And Chrome tab. All right. Can you guys see it? Yep.
Yep.
All right, cool. I'll play it right now. All right.
Number one, he is an asshole. Right? Forget about the mother of his child and walk away from them. From both the mother of his child and his kid. Now that means either one, he is an asshole, right? Or number two, there is something very, very seriously wrong with the woman. Think about it. See, why would a guy leave his woman and his kid? It means that there's something seriously wrong with the woman. Or there's something seriously wrong with the guy. If there's something seriously wrong with the woman, then you don't want to be with her. If the guy is a complete asshole, then the issue becomes, why was she with him? You see my point? So either outcome, it speaks extremely ill of the woman. I mean, either she had no, she didn't have her eyes open, and she was such a fool that she went with a complete asshole who, as soon as she got pregnant, left her. Or she herself was such a piece of work that the guy just couldn't stand her, and he left.
All right. So, so this is something I do see a lot of men are saying is of why not to date single moms is the concern of their decision making skills of their choices. So obviously, if the single mom chose a bad guy, if the guy's an asshole, obviously yes. But there is something for a lot of men to consider is like, why did you choose? Why is there a pattern of behavior that she keeps choosing these guys that constantly don't want to be with her? Or if the guys in her life don't want to be with her, the baby daddies, then that's something should be a concern for as well. Is obviously if a guy chooses to leave, abandon the child and the mother, because most guys are not to take care of the children. Most guys want to be in their life's cares, but to him, you know what, I don't want to deal with it no more. Then that's something also to consider as well. So that's something when I have conversations with a lot of guys, the reason why they say don't date single moms. Because they make bad choices in their past and they have a pattern of making bad choices. So is that the type of woman that you want to align yourself with? So, and of course, if all these guys in her life are not choosing her, then there's a reason they should look and consider and think about there's something either wrong with her or there's something wrong with her decision-making skills. And if you're going to think about a long-term good mother, if you're going to think about somebody who's going to raise your children, you have to, as a man, you have to be concerned about the way she makes choices. And if she's the type of woman that doesn't make good, logical choices, healthy choices, then that's something, you know what, that's something that you should definitely be a red flag for you. So, but what do you think? Because like I said, this is, I saw that's a clip, but it's not the only clip of what I see on social media. And also I'll add on this. Obviously, you guys know I do a podcast with dating relationships. I've been doing this for over a year. I talk to probably over multiple women who are single moms, and I know single moms personally in my life. One thing I have noticed is a lot of them come from very traumatic pasts, a lot of issues, a lot of baggage. So one thing when I have conversation with friends, I would say, like, if you do date a single mom, you do realize you're gonna have to. There's a lot of baggage that comes with it. Now that's up to you as a man to take that responsibility. But for a lot of guys, like, why would you, like Daniela said, like, why would you put yourself in a situation and add on the challenge and the complexities of dealing with all those baggage when you just go date with a girl that has no comes from a good background with their parents still together, and she doesn't have no kids, so you don't have to deal with her past. You don't have to deal with the complexities of being with a single mom. So why put yourself in that? But yeah, that's something I wanted to bring up. And real quick, I want to ask you, bring up for conversation. Obviously, for you guys who are single moms, and I got to learn about more of you guys on this podcast. So you guys come from a lot of past bad relationships, which kind of like aligns to what these guys saying on this clip. It looks like there's a lot of stuff that happened in their past. Like, why would you go with that? So what's your thoughts about that? Because I think that's something for a lot of men to be concerned about. But I'll open up for you guys of what you think about that when it comes to single moms, and why did they end up single moms? Their pattern of choices to end up being single moms, either with just themselves being a woman that can't keep a man, or the issue is that why do they always attract and keep picking the same men that abandon them? So that's still an issue as well. So what do you guys think about that? And I'll start with you, Daniela and Alice. What do you guys thought about what that guy said?
With the whole staying in a relationship, say with me, in my past marriage, yeah, a lot of my friends and everyone asked me, why are you still with him? Like, he's doing this to you. He's doing, his own family saw it. My friends saw it. They would ask me, why are you still with him? He's an asshole. He's this and that. And I'm like, yeah, I know he is. And through every time he did it, it got worse and worse, but I stayed. And for me, I stayed because I wanted not that perfect family, but I just wanted that father for my son. I was like, fuck you at the end of the day, like before the last one that he did. But yeah, for me, I stayed because I wanted my son to have his dad. And the last one for me was, nah, fuck you, get out of my house. Like, I'm done with you. Like, I don't want this shit anymore. Like, I shouldn't have to be enduring all this shit with you for my son to have a dad and also see me be beaten and crying and fucking just sad. Like, my son needs a happy mum. And fuck no, I was not happy. Like, for the longest time in that marriage, I'm pretty sure for the last year and a half I was with him, it was nothing. It wasn't a happy mum. And it was affecting my son. I could see it, but I was like, no, I can do this. I can just fucking keep doing it just a little bit longer. And it was hard. And I highly recommend don't do that. Don't fucking endure a relationship or a marriage or anything if it's fucking you up mentally, physically, just for the sake of your kids. Because at the end of the day, your kids need a happy mum. And if you're not happy, what the fuck are you doing? Like, well, what are you doing in that relationship anyways? Yeah, that was me.
I want to ask you this, at least before I pass on to Daniela. Did you ever, because one of the things, so after you left that toxic relationship, that bad relationship, did you ever go through a phase of like, man, fuck guys, they're all the same, with that toxic mentality that a lot of women have? Because sometimes when I talk to women, especially women who are single moms, their perspective of how they view men is very negative. It's very toxic,
Mm.
and that's one of the
No, I
concerns. So did you ever go through that? Like, when you left, and you're like, was there ever a period of time you're like, man, fuck all these guys, they're all the same. Oh, and then you had this negative perception or hate towards men. If you ever
no,
did you ever go through that phase or no?
no. I dating or even talking to guys, even when I was talking to Daniela before I even dated or whatever, I made it clear, like, this is what I went through. I'm not going to put that on you, but I'm just letting you know I got out of a marriage. I never hid the fact that I was a mother. I'm a mum. Just letting you know I'm not out here looking for a stepdad for my kid. I'm just out here just at the moment looking for fun. But no, I didn't have that whole fuck men. Fuck them all, they're all the same. Because I know that they're not all the same. I can see that with my own father. He did shit when I was younger to my mother that I fucking hated, and I promised myself I'm never gonna be in a relationship like that. That's nothing I want my kids to see. And then I ended up in that same predicament, and at the same time when mum got sick and everything, the last person there was my dad. So along the years I saw my dad change, and he changed for the good, he changed for the best, and even till mum passed away, my dad was the last one there. And no, it's yeah.
Okay.
And this is
And
why
then
we're
what-
in a relationship. 'Cause if she had that mindset, no way.
Yeah.
You know, it
And
wouldn't work.
one more question, Alicia. And do you have friends who go through that phase? Obviously, for you, you were in a bad, your partner was you were with the toxic partner. I want to ask you, because this is what the concern for a lot of men is. A lot of women who pick this man never take accountability that there was something on them as well. So like, some women who are in that phase, I hate all men, but they never self-reflect that maybe he wasn't the problem. Maybe it was you. And
Oh
and
God, yes.
it's because one thing I do notice from a lot of women like who have that mindset, they're very pessimistic, toxic mindset towards men. They lack accountability to look with themselves. Like, what do you do? We understand because the relationship is both parties. It's a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if one person did a bad thing, great. But don't forget, you can't say that you didn't do anything bad to the relationship to cause that relationship to fall apart. And oftentimes, what's the concern for a lot of when I do hear from a lot of men is when you talk to single moms, it's always never me. It's always the blame is on the person, and for that reason, you should kind of avoid because there's no accountability on air. So, do you have any friends that gone to that phase and you personally look at them like, I don't think it was your partner. I think it was, I think that's I think
Handful
you're
of
the problem.
friends.
You're the problem.
Yeah, I have a handful of friends who have and are still there. I have one friend who's just left her ex, or recently anyways. Talks about he was this, he was that, but at the same time I have to remind her, yeah, he was this and that, but you also played a part in why this relationship was shit anyways. My ex-husband, yes, he was very toxic, abusive and whatnot. I didn't probably help by being a petty bitch. I was petty as fuck. I found out that he cheated, so I'd go cheat. But he went and slept. I'll just go to the clubs and hook up with someone. And even though we would still come back, it was very fucking toxic. And I think a lot of women don't take accountability for their part in the relationship or why it failed, or any accountability at all to why he is doing this, why he's acting like that. Like, my tone, say if we were to have an argument, the way I talk to him, he would perceive it differently if I said it in a very was petty. Say, first year together, a classic example of me being a petty bitch. We'll get into an argument or disagreement. Yes, me and you. And I would go and fucking post a song on my story or fucking Facebook with like a lot of songs by Kalani, because it really hit me in the feels. And he would go look at the song, screenshot it, and he'll be like, "Oh, so what's this?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I just really like that song." But really, this song is really describing everything what I'm feeling, because fuck,
Yeah.
it was a good time. So we've moved along so far from that part of our relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those things are a big issue. So to any relationship at all, but it's more prevalent, when you're dating a parent, a single parent. So for me, anyway, the things that made sense to me right from the get-go is that there are certain behavior I'll tolerate. And those behaviors are things that I see that are new, but they aren't deep-rooted enough for it to be problems. And there are certain things that I just won't tolerate. So social media outcry was one of the things that I just didn't tolerate. That was my boundary. And when I used to see a lot of those things starting to come up, I had to nib it in the butt right at the beginning. And this is one of many things that our relationship work is that my ability to be a leader has never been in a place where it was questioned to the point that what I said or the decision that I made or anything that I've addressed was seen as a competition. Because if ever there was a moment that was the case, we would not be sitting here today. So I guess all in all, the relationship worked in the sense that as a man, I'm driven by logic. And as a woman, she's driven by emotion. So allowing her to be emotional to a point where it is healthy in the relationship, but also knowing that there are certain situations where we'll get into an argument about some stupid, trivial thing. Those things happen normally. But allowing her to be who she is emotionally is also the thing that brings into the relationship for our children, and also vice versa. Me being logical won't always be the right thing. Like if she came and asked me if she's fat and she's fat, me being logical will probably say, yeah, you're fat. But I have to employ a bit of emotions and say, oh, I don't fucking notice anything different. What are you talking about? So in those situations, that's where the relationship worked the way it is. But like what she's explaining is exactly what you have to put up with as a man in the early stages. So if you're someone that gets easily insecure or these are things that you just don't want to deal with, it's going to be a big problem. But like we always discuss, if this is the situation you find yourself in, you have to be a leader and you have to go the extra mile, because obviously there's a relationship that has worked to a certain extent and it has been for a long period of time, and there's a child involved. So there is a metric pre-existing subconsciously in her. So if this is the rodeo you want to ride, you have to be the best version that you are in every facet that you bring to the relationship. And ultimately it helps you in your own way. So me being a good partner, being a leader in what sense, helps me immensely just personally.
Daniela, did you ever ask about her and what happened in the past, or to kind of see like if she took any accountability, or because that's one of the things that a lot of guys are posting out there. Hey, most of these women, they won't take accountability. And thank you for sharing that, Alici. The things that you went through in your past relationship, because I've been doing this for a long time. Like most women won't admit that they were part of the problem. But did you ever think about that when you were dating her, Daniela, that she's a woman that's accountability, and how did you vet that to figure out that she is the type of woman that, even though, like you said, she's gonna make decisions based on her emotion, that's what women are, but she's the one to take accountability for it.
So it wasn't more of a verbal question. I was a bit more observant in the sense that I observed the way that she behaved, and not only that, one of the biggest thing that sort of hit it on the nail for me was, I think in the early stages of our relationship, that's when Dad reached out and asked you to take in boy, right? And that conversation for us, and I was very observant in the way that she would react. And the reason why that was a very important moment for me was that I know that the highest possibility for our son at the time to live a somewhat normal life at the time was with her dad. She's currently in a relationship with me. She's not going to be putting her attention fully to him or myself. So the best course of action for me logically is, as I would think at the time, was that he needs to go and stay with dad. And when we sort of discussed this in the early stages, the way that she was talking to me in regards to, okay, I personally think this is a good idea. What do you think? Do you think this is something that we can do? And when I supported her in the sense of, you should let dad look after the boy, and the way she reacted to it told me enough that the way she looked at men wasn't the same as most women that I've come across. And I have come across a few single mothers before her. And it was that for a mother to let go of her child, especially after an abusive relationship, is very hard. But considering it going to someone like her dad is a much more important decision. And the way that she reacted to it showed me that, okay, she's probably still carrying the same pain, but she doesn't look at me like I'm going to be some potential threat to her in the long distance, which is very important, because if she's already have that metric and she's always measuring it up against ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, ex-baby daddy, or whatever you call it, that's going to be a problem. And it's very hard for you to escape that sort of metric if that's the type of woman you end up with.
All right, no worries. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you for sharing, guys. I know a lot of people in the live chat right now. Thank you so much for everybody in the live chat, dropping your comments and dropping your comments based on what we're discussing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me pass it to Lonnie. Lonnie, what's your thoughts, Lonnie, on the video I played? A lot of men are concerned, about the women. Either there's something wrong with them because that's why a lot of guys don't want to be with them, or there's something also wrong with the decision making because for some reason they keep picking the wrong quality guys. What's your thoughts about that video I played? Oh, go ahead, Lonnie.
Oh, sorry. I mean, yeah, I think, well, from my experience with my ex-husband, like I said earlier, our relationship wasn't your conventional, marriage. And to make it short, we basically got married because I wanted him to be a father to my child, and he needed a green card. Like that was it. Like, we met at school. He couldn't stay because we were both, doing what we were doing at LDS school. And so when they kicked us out, it was like either, okay, we get married, try to raise this kid on our own, or try to raise it together, or, you go back to your home country because you don't have a visa. I raised the kid on my own. And so we decided that, we would just get married and try to make it work, and obviously it didn't. With that being said, I do think that. Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Oh, let me ask you. Did you ever look back at your previous past relationship? Because a lot of times when I talk to single moms, they usually have a very negative perception for men. Because they had a bad experience with the previous guy. They're like, when a new guy comes, they usually tell you they have this mindset, right? All guys are the same. They're all shit. They're all shitty. But we all know in a relationship it takes two to tango. So the man has problems, but obviously the woman has problems as well. A lot of times when you talk to these single moms, they make it seem like that there was never a problem with them. So there's no accountability on their end. Majority of the blame is always on the man. And for a lot of guys, what they point out is that's a red flag, because a lot of women, a lot of single moms, they come with some kind of baggage, and they have bad behaviors that showed in the past, obviously that's why they're not in a relationship. If everything was good, then she would still be in it.
Yeah.
But like I said, a lot of them don't are not accountable. They don't take accountability for it. So if you go in a relationship for this woman, just understand that they're gonna come with a lot of baggage and the same behaviors that they never learned from the past, and they're gonna bring it to the next relationship, and it's likely gonna be the next guy that's gonna jump in with her. Like, did you ever go through a phase where you look within yourself, like, man, even though as bad as things got, you kind of self-reflected, and you know what, man, I made some bad choices and learn from them. Did you ever go through that phase?
Yeah, because I would never have married my ex-husband. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, like that in itself was just a bad decision on my part because I should have, instead of trying to, I feel like because I came from a single parent background, I didn't want my child to come from a single parent background. So therefore, in my head, I was like, well, if this dude is game to get married, then let's just try to make it work. You know what I mean? Which is not, I would never have done that. Knowing what I know now, I can see how my insecurities and how I was raised affected my decision in in making that decision to get married as quickly as I did. You know what I mean? So I think like for a lot of women it's hard for us to take responsibility for things when we mess up, you know what I mean? And even though my ex-husband was abusive, I mean, I'm the one that wanted to get married, it wasn't it like he was wrong in what he did, but I was wrong in how we got married. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we just shouldn't have never been together. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I love how what you pointed out. It's like even though he was a shitty guy, but you did point out the fact that you still chose to be with him. You made that choice, and
Yeah.
that's usually the conversation for a lot of guys. Like when they talk to these women, like yeah, you blame all the guy you want, but you chose him. There's all these good men out here, but you decided to procreate with this guy when he showed all these signs of toxicity. And all the good men are like, hey man, we're here, but you chose that guy, and that's what you get, right? Um,
And I
but
think a lot of people need to realize too is like being LDS, and I've seen this even with the younger generation, is that if you get pregnant, there's that huge pressure from your family and from your church and from all these people that are like, well, you're pregnant now, might as well get married, like, jump the broom. And looking back on that now, I'm like, hell no. Like, just because you're pregnant does not mean you should marry this person. Like, you know?
yeah,
So I think people need
right,
to understand that too. Like coming from a religious background, like how I did, it's not that my our intentions of getting married and being in a relationship together wasn't based on what it should have been based on. It wasn't based on love. It wasn't based on, let's make a happy family. It was based on, okay, I need a green card. You want a father for our kid? Let's figure it out.
all right.
Total
Well,
toxic. So
no worries, no worries. Yeah, thank you, Lonnie. I appreciate it, and I see I saw you posted. Was it too late to join? To know you that we still have time, so jump on and we'll finish off the podcast with you. So jump on and add on to the conversation. Always looking for people to add on to the conversation. But no worries. The last thing I want to bring up real quick before we conclude the podcast. This is something that I think is really, really important to bring up, and I'm interested to hear from the ladies and also from Daniela as well. Is the one thing that we always discuss on the podcast, especially when it comes to men, especially the men with value, the strong masculine men that most women want. We want feminine women, right? Um, a lot of times with single moms, based on the conversation with people in the content I see with a lot of men, what they say is don't go with the single mom because a lot of them are masculine. A lot of times, when a woman becomes a single mom, she has to play the role of the man in the relationship to replace the guy leaving. So oftentimes, when they spend a lot of time by themselves, being the provider protector, a lot of these women become masculine over time, And then for a guy that comes in, he's masking himself to go in a relationship with a single mom, and she's already, she's not only with the complexities of the single mom that we just discussed on this podcast, but you also add on to the fact that she's masculine. And for men, it's like one of the things that we look for that's sexually attractive for us. We want feminine women, especially if you want a guy that's a strong leader, like Daniela said, like guy with valor, and as Daniela said, he's a strong leader. But it's going to be hard to lead a person if she's going to be very um, disagreeable and not willing to be able to be open to allow you to lead. So if you're with a woman, not only she's a single mom, but she's also masculine, that's a very hard thing to navigate. So I want to ask the ladies real quick. What do you think about that? A lot of men saying is don't date single moms, especially moms who been single for a long time, because they're not the most feminine women. They're very masculine uh, women. So let me start with you, Alicia. What do you think about that?
Sorry, can you repeat that question one more time?
No, no. So one of the concerns for a lot of guys is like guys want feminine women, right? Like, especially men who are very masculine. Maybe if you're a
Beta.
simp out there, maybe you want a more masculine woman. But guys who have value, guys that want to be leaders in the family, guys that want to be responsible for his family, they want a feminine woman.
Mm.
So a lot of times, if a woman is a single mom, because the man left, she has to play the role of the man now, right? She has to
Yeah.
work, she has to go out there, be the provider, protector, and that oftentimes you have to take on traits of the man. So that sometimes a lot of the single moms become masculine. So that's why a lot of guys are saying is don't date single moms, because not only will all the baggage and the stuff we just talked about the last couple of hours,
Mm.
she's also a very masculine woman. So you're going to be competing with her as a man if you're masculine yourself. You want to be with a more feminine woman, because that's going to be more the feminine woman is going to complement your traits, don't go against it. And when I talked to Daniela, and Daniela have discussed this in the past before, one of the things that kind of trumped, who overlooked all the statistics when it came to dating you, was he really appreciated your femininity, and that's something that added value to him. It was one of the things that he prioritized when making the decision to be with you, was your femininity as a woman, Alicia. So what's your thoughts about that? About being a feminine woman while being a single mom?
I think it was just easy. Well, for me, anyways, it was easy for me just to be feminine, I guess. But seeing my friends who have been single mums for a long time, they do have that very, because they play both roles, like you said, and they have to because the dad isn't in the picture.
It's all good.
So my brain just went.
No worries, no worries. No, so okay, no worries. I'll come back to you. I'll come just kind of so you kind of think about your thought process. But I'll let me pass on to Daniela. Yeah. So what's your thoughts, Daniela? Because I think you shared it before in the podcast, but if you can share it again for a lot of the men out there, how important it is to one of the things you should look for as a man is especially if you're gonna date a single mom, that you should look for. If you're gonna date a single mom, go find the most feminine one. That should be something you take in consideration. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it absolutely should be a priority in the sense that, especially for men who are driven, right? So, for example, for anyone who doesn't know the situation that we were in, when I met Alicia, I think a month prior to that, I've just managed to move from a labor only job into very junior level management, and it took quite a very ambitious mindset and a lot of drive to get to that position. So there were certain goals that I wanted to achieve. So when I was under that sort of mindset, I still needed a female company, and I still needed to date. And the reason why I needed to date is there's no point of me being ambitious and driving to achieve, six-figure salaries and high management and social status if I'm not going to share that with a woman, and if I'm not going to share that with a family one day? So what's the point? What's the point of building values and being a strong man if I'm not going to lead a family one day? So in terms of looking at a family, I don't want to be with a woman where I'm in constant competition with. And usually a masculine woman brings that to the dynamic. I don't want to walk into the house and the first thing that, we greet each other is just arguments. It's the last thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
And when we were dating, one of the things that I noticed very earlier on was that as soon as she found out I was working multiple days on site, she would usually come around with food, warm blanket, a pillow, checked in on me. And there was no incentive to do that. There wasn't a discussion of, oh, you should look after me because I'm going to promise you a relationship. It was, we're just dating, we're having some fun. If this turns serious, it turns serious. But please know, I'm not promising you a relationship at the end of this all. If you don't want to tolerate that, if you don't want to be in that situation, it's fine. We can move on to whatever it is that we have to do. So that was the green flag. But not only that, it was consistent right through. So one of the things that we used to do in the early days, we would used to go out clubbing, get drunk in town and be youngsters and whatnot. And as I was getting deep into my career, I stopped. And to me, it didn't make sense that I'm spending my weekend where I could learn more skills, getting plastered and not remembering half my weekend. She carried that on even after I decided to stop. And one of the conversations we had was that I don't want you to go out to town, not for the fact that I'm not going out to town, but for the fact that I'm changing my priority. I think as a mum, you should look into prioritizing your weekend with your son. This is not a stab at who you are as a mother, but me personally, if we end up in a relationship, I would like for you to prioritize our children. It's one of the things that I'm looking for. And she didn't take that as me coming after her as being a shitty mom. She didn't come back to me and go, oh, who the fuck are you to tell me what to do with my kid? She took that on board and she said, I think you're right. And we sort of moved in that direction where we left out drinking for a vast majority of our early days. We prioritized a lot of things that me and my career, she prioritized the kid. We found the time that we were dating. And those were just the foundation that I looked at as, even though there aren't many things that I can see right away, but those are great foundation for me to build on with her in a future that I can see would last very long. So I hope that answered that question. But yeah, being a feminine woman, it's like and I know a lot of people don't like it when I use this. It's like when I used to say in the podcast that when we address men, like, don't be a pussy, right? And it's not a derogative intent for women. It's like, you don't have one as a man, so you're not going to be very good at it anyway. So don't be one. Just be a man. Build some good foundation, some good values, and be somewhat of a leader in your own community. And it's just a simple ask that we do for women. Just be a woman, please. You're a fantastic human being the way you are, but just be a woman in the sense that you are comfortable being who you are, really.
No, good. Those are one of the things I do notice, observations, right, for a lot of single moms who tend to be more masculine because they have to play both roles. Like a lot of times they're like, I want a man, I want a good man, I want a strong man, I want a man that's gonna come in and be the leader. But then the man comes in and try to give her direction. You can't tell me shit. Right? You don't know what I'm being through. I'm a single mom, I'm an independent woman. And the guy was like, well, if you want me in your life, you want me to play the role of a leader, you want me to play the role of, it's like, for the way I always have to explain to women, imagine you hire somebody for a job and he comes to the job and you give him a different role. You didn't give him the role that you hired him for. Right. So if you want a strong man, you want a masculine man, obviously men who are strong, who have value, who have morals, who have integrity, they're going to speak to what they believe is right and what they think they should do. And like I'm not always saying it's always right, but you should be open to it. But a lot of times when I talk to for single moms, like you can't tell them anything, especially if it comes from a man. So that's why for a lot of guys, like it's a constant battle being with a very masculine woman. and then you also have to include all the other stuff we just talked about before, when you're just gonna go with a woman that's more feminine and is more willing to be more agreeable. Thank you, Underground Road. Shout out to Underground Road. Thank you for the super chat. All right. But Alicia, I'll come back to you, Alicia. I'll come back to you. We need some more tips on that femininity, man. You're so natural in femininity that a lot of women need to hear that. All right, let me pass it on to one of our newest guests that just jumped on. I got you, Lani. I'll come back to you, Lani. I just want to add on real quick. Ani, is it Ani? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ani, thank you. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ani, for jumping on the podcast. Thank you so much. What do you think, Ani? What's your thoughts on everything we discussed? What do you think?
Firstly, I just wanted to shout out to everyone from Australia. I think this is a great platform because, for many reasons, these are things that are real raw with us that we don't discuss. And Will, I've come across your podcast a few times, and I felt away because I've been a single mother before. From what I've been coming in and out of, it's good insight. It's great insight, brother Daniela. Your words, like what you're sharing, that's real. Unfortunately, not everyone is like you. I don't know many brothers that have the same insight, perspective, understanding that you're willing to give, patience. So before I go into just whatever I'm going to ramble into, is there a question in particular? What was the last question in particular?
Well, the last thing we were discussing is the reasons why a lot of men are saying don't date single moms, because they're masculine. So we always talk about this on the podcast. Most men, they're, especially a man that's very masculine himself, they prefer women, feminine women. But sometimes the challenges of dating a single mom who's been alone her whole life, majority of her life, she had to take on the role of a man because the previous man left. So oftentimes she's not as feminine than most women. She's very masculine. And a lot of times that's a turnoff for guys, like, because we want, most guys, not saying all, but they prefer feminine women. And a lot of times those single moms, they have their walls up, they're so guarded. It's so hard to be close to her, to get that feminine side out of her because of all the past and the baggage. That's really hard to connect with them. They have this, like, they act like a man to protect themselves. So a lot of times they can be seen as masculine for a lot of men that want to try to date you, but then see it's too hard. I'm just gonna go with a woman that's more feminine. What's your thoughts about that?
Oh, my race is like, my heart is racing, like and it's funny because when it comes to topics like this, I'm not used to being so quick to bite my tongue. I've heard things in the discussion and that I've agreed with in regards to toxicity, accountability. I can only speak on my journey, and I know that I was raised by very strong women. Not actually, I didn't even have one positive male role model in my life. So in regards to that, when I did come along, when the father of my kids did come along, it took about 15 years for me to realize that I wasn't letting him sit in his place.
Yeah.
So that was a whole lot of myself and my journey, him and his journey, and me not understanding that it was okay. I was going to be okay to just let him sit and take and play his role. But that also started early on in the relationship, where there was no talk, there was no communication in regards to emotions. There was no vulnerability on his behalf. Me, I'd like to think that I'm not vulnerable, but when shit hits the fan, everything comes out. So I'm just gonna say, I'm very fortunate that I've met a man that loves me for who I am. Look at me, I'm in my, I've got kicks on right now. Like, you know, the only time you see me in a dress is when I need to be in one. How I am now though is is because of on both parts, the strong women and the lack of strong role models in my life. Do I understand that now? Yeah, I do. After we split, I do. There was a lot of violence in our relationship as well. We had a lot of demons that we didn't understand. I think that's why when you speak about, you know, how do we avoid single mamas, that one hits the heart, because it definitely takes two to tango. And when a man can see what your triggers are, and a man keeps playing at it, and a man keeps provoking at it, then you end up in a pattern, and the pattern becomes familiar, and you like to go back to what's familiar, because after a while, the familiar becomes the normal. And what do you do when you're out of your comfort space? You sabotage. You sabotage yourself. When something good is happening to you for a long time, what's going on? You know, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. It's not my familiar. So you sabotage. So I'm not speaking on all single women, because I know a lot of amazing single women and a lot of amazing single men. I think when it comes to, you know, just the whole stigma of dating single women, and I'm going to say on behalf of the women, single men, I think it's going to come a lot to, are you ready to grow? Because adulting is fucking hard. Parenting is even harder. So if you can step into both roles, before I used to try and balance, you know, my work, my relationship, my kids, but really life is just all a balance. And you know, in regards to, you know, men with good values, finding, you know, men with good values, you know, being with single mamas. I know a lot of men that have learned their values after being in relationships, after going through all that. We all have a journey, you know. So the growth and the development is always going to come back to whether you're willing to, whether you have been exposed to it, whether you have the options to change, and your own core values and beliefs, your upbringing. I know a lot of, so I work with young men, young offenders, and I can actually equally say that there are young men that are raising kids that are their own, and there are young men that are raising kids that aren't theirs. I don't know, maybe it's a mummy thing. Maybe, you know, maybe it's because they like being looked after. My brothers, they stepped into roles as stepfathers. For me, they didn't make it an issue. Like, you know, they stepped into an understanding that the complexities of life are going to lead you into spaces. Are we willing to step into that space together? Not as, you know, her and her past. You know, drinking is not going to define you as a person. Your mistakes aren't going to define you as a person. Definitely people are going to judge you off it. But as you get to know someone, it's really up to you whether you're willing to grow. From with my partner now, it's hard for me to let him step into the role, not because of my past relationship, but because of the cultural difference. We have cultural differences. So my standards are very different to his standards. So I will hold my place because my standards have always been there before, and my standards have been applied and demonstrated not only through me, but through the people in my family. So it's a culture thing, you know. And he's learning. God is good that I have a man that is willing to learn, because stepping even into the poly community when you're not even familiar with how big our families are, you know, just the way that we are culturally, that's a big thing. But I learned through him, not the 15 years that I was with somebody else, with the father of my kids. I learned through him how to be open, if that's crazy. We've got God. I was raised with God. I'm not actively going to church and whatnot. I was raised, I've got good family support. But he's the one who really actually showed me by actually applying it and letting me see that different perspective from him. And I guess in a relationship in general, that's what it's going to come down to. If you're willing to step into a relationship with somebody with children, where are you? They're going to have to come to your savior eventually, and you're going to have to come to save them eventually. But are you ready? I don't know. I don't know if that was too much or.
No, that was fine. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Ani. When you said like taking the role, do you mean like is it hard for you to allow him to come in and be the man, the leader in the relationship? Is that what you mean when you say to allow him to step into that role? What do you mean by that?
With the first relationship, with the first relationship, well, I never knew. I never had a male in my life to show me, to set a standard for what a male is supposed to look like, what a good male is supposed to look like. I went from family DV to, I went through, sexual abuse. Then in my teen, mental turns into emotional. That went into drug and alcohol abuse. Then I ended up with a man, and that, unfortunately, naturally for me, it was DV. And I always looked after him. That's my role. That's my role. But I never knew that I guess, you know what, in regards to me, I never felt safe enough to give it to him, to just surrender myself. I never felt in a space where I could just be trusting, because it was jail, it was drugs, it was alcohol. And when it comes to kids, I guess I was the only, we had different levels of how to love, if that makes sense. I was brought up by women who only knew how to love. We had nothing, but we had food. We had, you know what I mean? Whereas on his side, like I had a conversation with our son just yesterday. And so he's 14, and my daughter, who's 15, she texts me and he texts me, and I called him first, and they had a disagreement, and I said, son, because my daughter just came back from holidays, I said, son, how do you know your sister's not feeling away because she hasn't been spending time with her father? And he said to me, how do you know I'm not feeling that way, mama? He said to me, the only time dad wants me is when he wants a cup of tea, when he wants food, when he wants me to charge his phone, or when he wants me to play his PS4. We love differently. Our love language is different. So I think that's why, as a woman, I never even understood the love with a man. And I gave from what I knew. And it wasn't until later on, learning all throughout life, looking, comparing my relationship with everyone else's. Comparison is the thief of joy. That I realized, man, I was putting so much on myself because that's all I know how to do. I never actually let him step into the role. It's too late now. You know what I mean? And in regards to this relationship now, I'm learning from the past, I know that there's times where I have to give leeway, because God is good. It's even hard as a mama who's done everything for my children. I'll say that 100%. And to give myself permission to allow God and His blessing. This is somebody that is blessing you. How do I take it when there's no agenda behind it? Do you know what I mean? Well, then it goes back to the sabotage. Something's wrong here. But He's taught me that it's okay. He's created that safe space with me.
No
So
worries.
yes. Sorry, to answer
Good.
your question. The role is leading. The role
Yeah.
is protector. Yeah.
I just want to thank you, shout out to you, and thank you for sharing. Uh, and then adding on to the conversation. But Lani, what's your thoughts about the last thing we were discussing about men? Just saying, a lot of times the single moms are very masculine, but a lot of men they prefer to be the feminine. They prefer feminine women. What do you think?
Well, to be honest, I never until like I've heard your podcast before, and I've heard a lot of people talk about femininity and masculinity, but I never really seen it like that, if that makes sense. Like I've like to me, masculinity and femininity is like kind of toxic terms. It was before. I don't see it like that anymore though.
Yeah,
Um, but I definitely understand how that is because well, like how Ani was sharing, I too like with my mom being a single mom, my grandmother was very strong-minded, I'm Hawaiian, so my culture is very naturally matriarchal and not patriarchal. So growing up, I've never seen what a healthy relationship looked like. Like in my
mm,
immediate family, in my extended family, like there was never like a guide, like, okay, this is what my marriage is supposed to look like, or this is what a healthy relationship looks like. Like there was never any of that. Like I didn't see like domestic violence, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I've never seen how a wife and a husband are supposed to act towards each other. Because in my family, the women always carried the family. My grandfather, he never really held down a job. My grandmother was the main support of the family. My dad passed away when I was little. So it was always women carrying the family. So that's how I thought, relationships were. It was normal for the women in my family to yell at the men or to tell them, or not really, I don't want to say degrade them, but that was a normal thing for me to see.
mhm,
It's like, well, I don't need a man. I got myself. Like, I can take care of all these kids. Like, that to me was normal.
mm,
So when I got in my second, in this marriage, it was really hard for me to change that viewpoint. And it wasn't until I had these palagi in our church, we call it like visiting teachers, and they came to visit me. And one of the ladies took me aside, and she's like a 50-year-old palagi lady. She's like, "Look, I've seen you yell at your husband, and I don't think like that's a way, your
yeah,
husband wants to be treated." And she gave me this book called The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands. I don't know if any of you ever heard of it or read it, but it basically it talks about how a woman should be treating her husband, like what, how to become more feminine. And I got totally offended by it. I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, I don't need like I'm fine. Like if he's the one with the problem. Like I'm if he needs to love me for me, that was my whole aura about it, about the experience. But looking back on it now, I totally understand what she meant by I need to be more feminine. You know what I mean? How I need to, I do need to care for my husband. And I'm not talking about like being submissive and doing whatever he asks me to do, 24/7. But like how, Ani and Alicia said, like learning how to let my husband be the head and the father of our home. You know what I mean? And I feel like for some of us single mothers, especially those of us who come from very strong matriarchal families, it's very hard for us to let that go and to let that idea go. Because me, I'm the type of person like, well, if you're fucking it up, I'm gonna fix it. And I'm gonna tell you what you're doing is wrong, and I'm gonna tell you how to fix it, and I'm gonna tell you my way is better. That's how I used to do things. Now I try to be more, communicative and I try really hard to let my husband be the man that he needs to be and wants to be.
mm,
But it's hard when you've been conditioned your entire life to see men and to I don't want to say to feel more superior than men, because that's not, I don't think that's how like I was meant to be raised, but in a way that's kind of how I always, in a way, thought, if that makes sense. And I'm very grateful that my husband, we've been together for almost 12 years now, or 11 years, but he's been very patient with me in helping me realize where I've been wrong, because there are many times in our marriage that I've been the toxic person. I've been, like, in a way, the abuser, and not like physically, but just emotional stuff. And it's hard for me to say that, and I know, so it's hard for women to say that as well, because I know there are a lot of women out there, whether they're single mothers or not, but who are abusive and who do want their husband, or who want their husband kind of to be knocked on a pedestal. And so, knowing what I know now, not only am I embarrassed about, what I've done, but I feel like if I could help another woman see that, see or recognize her faults, and not recognize her faults, but if I could help someone realize that, we as women do need to take accountability for what we do. And it's not always our husband's fault. And sometimes we do need to take it down a notch. And I'm grateful that I have a wonderful mother-in-law that lives here, in the same state that we were, that helped me to be like, girl, like, you need to stop yelling so much at your husband, like, be more caring towards him. And I feel like for a lot of us women, especially us poly women, it's kind of, you either have the really feminine girls that know how to cater and to serve their husbands, or you have the really masculine women like me who are the exact opposite spectrum. And it's women can, everyone can change, everyone can be better and do better, but it takes time, and it takes experience, and it takes patience. And if you're going to date a single mom that has these issues, you need to know that it's going to take time for her to change. And you can either stay in that relationship and be patient, like my husband was, and work it out, and help her get therapy, because that's what it took for me to change. Or you need to see what the situation is, and you need to bounce. Either or, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I feel like both people have that have the option to either move forward or to separate.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that for both Lani and Ani. That is something that is common when I have discussions with a lot of Pacific Islander women that grew up in a very matriarchal family, with the grandmother or the mom was the head of the family. A lot of times, they just take on the role, what the example, what the mom said. So, like, they never knew how to navigate when it came to dealing with men, because all they saw was examples of women. So when it came to finally dealing with the man, it was something that was like something that was foreign to them. It was hard for them to figure out. And a lot of times they had, because they with their mom, who was the strong household, the provider, protector, so they took on those traits, and they thought that's what they should do when it comes to relationship, not understanding there's a different dynamic when you deal with a man. Um, and that's something that was a struggle for them to learn. So thank you for sharing those examples from both of you guys, because that is something that I commonly see and have discussions with the women. But I'm gonna finish up with Daniela, Alisi. What was your anything you want to add on to the conversation? I know the ladies shared their thoughts about it, and Alisi, anything come up to mind that you want to share? You want to share as well? You want to share as well? But yeah, you guys can go ahead and add on and share.
Um, yeah, just I think I'll go first. You have a choice, right? And I think a couple of the comments come in. You have a choice, and like what Lani was saying, you have a choice to either date single mothers or don't. You have a choice to have them included in your dating pool or not. So choose based on that whether that's something that you want to take on. So again, what we're providing tonight is, these are the things that come with the territory. If you want to, this is a route that you find yourself in. there are certain qualities or traits that you have to deploy, and there are certain understanding that you have to take on board. And majority of those are metrics that have already pre-existed either with the, ex-partner or the way that they were brought up. So, not everyone has either the capability or the capacity to deal with those things, and that's fine. Do what you have to do. But it's more, this is more evident to me that there needs to be a solution. There needs to be a solution of a relationship that we create with each other. Why? Because out of these stories, what's the common denominator? There's a guy missing. There's a man missing. There's a father figure missing. And if we go throughout the world looking at this thing as it's all negative, there is no positive that come out of it, then we're allowing children to grow up in an environment where they don't have the father figure still, right? So in terms of what we're looking at trend, and when we talk about statistics and that sort of stuff, what are we giving children in our community in terms of opportunity if we don't show them what two healthy parents can do and achieve in order to give them a metric? And I think this goes back to, our podcast before when we talk about what's the selling point of being in a marriage or being in a long-term relationship. Children, giving them a healthy standard of what life should be about. And not only that, giving them the opportunity to build upon what you leave behind. I don't have a delusion that me as a person and whoever I'll ultimately be before I go 6 feet under, I don't have this delusion that I'm perfect. But my hope for my kids is that they at least use the values that are built as a foundation for them to improve on it. So, man, this is an amazing opportunity for us to continue these conversations. Not only that, not so much, I don't think stigma or perception, but here are the tools. You either decide to pick them up and move on with it, or you leave it and go find something else. That's all we're trying to provide here. So, yeah.
And thank you, Daniela. Alicia, you wanted to add on to the convo?
Just going off what Lani was saying, I think it was Lani or Annie, one of them. Growing up, I saw my dad be abusive to my mum, but at the same time he changed. But at the same time he was also very hardworking, dedicated. As a father, husband, not really. But those were the traits from my dad that I took, that I wanted in this relationship. The other traits are clearly what I got in the first one. But clearly I'm not the well-spoken one in this relationship, so bear with me.
You're good.
I think back to also the femininity side of things.
Yeah.
It was easy for me to still have that when I met Daniela, because I felt like I never lost it in my marriage to, my marriage. And even though all that shit happened in our marriage, I didn't lose that part of me, because if anything, I'm still going to hold myself up to what I believe I deserve. Fuck you, whatever. To me, I'm still who I'm going to be, and I'm going to make sure I am me for the next person. And like Annie said, she didn't give herself fully to her ex, and I feel like I didn't fully give myself to my ex either. And in this relationship, I feel like I did. Even when we were dating, talking, in the first couple of years of our relationship, I stayed true to who I was as a feminine woman.
Yeah. So what we're starting to realize, especially with Mick Down Black Pill, is that we're so individualistic when we go into a relationship, right? So it's the focus is so much of what can this woman bring into the relationship, or what can this man bring into the relationship? What Annie was saying before of being in a safe space, in order for her to allow her partner to step into roles that she kept away from her ex. You have to put in the work. As a man, you have to put in the work. So when we talk about relationship, you cannot sit there and expect a woman to give you everything and be a feminine woman if you're not providing the space. And not only that, to clarify, and this is more towards the women, a masculine, strong man is one that protect. A masculine energy is a protect and a provide energy. It is not abusive. That's not a man, and that's not masculine at all. Masculinity in us men is to protect, and it's to have the ability to say, I will die for my family, regardless of whatever it is, if I have to. And I will go out to the world and face all its troubles so that my family get the shelter and the protection that they need. When we look at these abusive men, and although they display some sort of what people call masculinity, they're not. They are weak men who haven't built any value to appreciate what it takes to be a man and what to build a strong relationship with a woman and to build a family. So take it with a grain of salt what you take away from very good advice, but also at the same time, relationship is a two-way street. Just as much as you want a feminine woman, you also need to be a masculine man. And what does that look like to you is how you should be able to perceive and analyze what quality you bring to the table, and not just leave it on the table. You have to put it back on and be consistent with it on a daily basis. And when we talk about conditional femininity and that sort of topic and stuff like that, you as a man should also wear your armor as a masculine man full term. Because I'm starting to realize that apparently we also do that too. We're not able to be strong and be honest with women in the sense that as soon as we sense something that that is not preached to us through a red pill avenue or whatever space that we belong to, we disregard it instead of sitting down and saying, hey, let's have the conversation. What's going on? Is this a place where there's potential to grow? Or is this just a place where we don't even see eye to eye from, right from the beginning? So, man, it takes a lot of work, but it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever endured and pursued in my whole entire life. And getting to see my children grow up is much more rewarding than any, paycheck I've ever gotten.
Thank you, Daniela. I want to have one question. Alicia. Remember Daniela saying that one of the things he appreciated from you was your femininity, especially when you would come and give him towels and hot food when he was at the site, the construction site, right? Where did you learn that behavior from? Was it something that you saw the women in your life that how? Because most women wouldn't do that. Most women they don't get the title, they don't get the official title. They won't go out their way to do that for a man, especially here in America where I live. But you just showed that side of you, even without the title. Like I said, but what I want to ask you, was that when you made that decision to do that, was that something you saw growing up? An example that this is what you do with the man, this is how you should treat them, or where did that come from?
I didn't see it anywhere. I didn't see it growing up or anything. For me, I feel like it was, as a mother, that was just me. I'm just caring. I just thought, I saw it. He needed it. I will do it without anything in return. I don't need anything from you. Okay, you're hungry. Cool. I'll come bring you some food. You're staying the night or whatever days at work just to try get some concrete laid or whatever. I will come bring you a pillow and a blanket so you can get some rest. It wasn't, I do this for you, you do this for me. Same as when we were dating, going out to go on a date. If he was to pay for the movies, I'll pay for dinner. Or if he was to pay for dinner, I'll pay for movies. We split everything 50-50. What I did for him during our dating, when we were dating, that was just me doing that for him. It wasn't something I saw a woman growing up like my mum. I didn't see her do that for my dad. I didn't see any of my there was no female role model where that kind of showed me, this is what you do for a man. This is what you do to get a man. It was just for me. I just did it. It just felt natural. Cool. You're hungry. I'll come bring you food. But I didn't do it with anything in return.
No, you said the key word I was looking for. You said it was just your motherly instinct
Yeah.
to do it, and a lot of times I think that for guys, like, we appreciate that motherly feminine trait in a woman because that's what makes you a woman. And I think a lot of times for a lot of women, like, they think that doing what I would do or providing a man would do, like being a masculine way, they might sometimes they think that's how, like, to get with a man. But a lot of times I just ask a woman, like, I want you, all I want you, I think, all you have to do is be a woman. And for a lot of men, that's something that they appreciate. So I was just very interested, like, how did that come about? But that is a conversation that I do on podcasts all the time with a lot of the more masculine women. And when we have a conversation with the men, then a lot of the men are just saying, like, you don't have to do what I do to, in a relationship. I just want you, like, I'm already doing what I do. I'm good. I just want you to be the woman and, doing the things that my mother used to do for me when I was a young boy. And we look for that in the woman that we're gonna partner up for the rest of our lives. So I just wanted to know that real quick. So nevertheless, we've come to the end of the podcast conclusion. I just want to say thank you for everybody that's constantly still watching this right now. If you're watching this right now and you haven't liked the video, press that like and subscribe button real quick. You guys been tuning in the whole show. Definitely press that like, subscribe button if you appreciate the content, love what we do. Please show some support. I just want to give a shout out to our public guests real quick. Shout out to Lani, Ani, and also Alisi for joining on. All the way from different parts of the world, Australia, New Zealand, and Lani, where you from, Lani? Are you from the US?
Yeah, U.S., Alaska.
From Alaska. All right,
Yeah.
all the way from Alaska. So so thank you so much. I want to appreciate you guys up and on sharing the conversation. I know it was one of the more controversial topics and hard discussions to have. But thank you guys for being open to have these discussions because obviously we know there's a lot of people out there that trying to navigate through this, and hopefully by having this discussion, we can add balance to everybody out there. And thank you guys in the live chat, being tuning in the live chat all this whole show. Thank you so much, all you guys. Underground Road Fatty, Get Lost. Thank you guys for your super chat donations. I appreciate that from you guys. I'm gonna ask you guys real quick just to conclude the podcast. What's your final thoughts? What you take away from this discussion? And we'll conclude it with that. And let me just start with you, Lonnie. What's your final thoughts? And thank you for jumping. I know this is your first time being on here. Thank you for a lot of times covering this podcast can be controversial. A lot of people, but thank you for jumping on anyway. But what's your final thoughts from tonight's podcast?
If you're gonna date a single mom, that's great. Go ahead. But I also feel that for those that don't want a single mom, that's great too. Like, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and I feel like men shouldn't be stigmatized for not dating single mothers. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you choose who you want to be with, but just know that, just because we may come with some extra stuff on the side, it is, we can bring value to your lives too, But yeah.
All right, no worries. Thank you for jumping on, Lonnie. Thank you for clicking on the link and to be part of the conversation. You're always open to jump on anytime, Lonnie. Just click on that link and come on. Ani, what's your thoughts? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Man, if whether it's a he, she, shim, sure, all the pronouns, if you feel it and if it's your vibe, man, just YOLO. That's all I gotta say. Because everything's worth. one thing to share is what you meant femininity, and I'll be honest, I never even seen it like that. My understanding of femininity was the way that you dress, not how you are. So yeah, I just learned something. And I have a better understanding of that word now. But yeah, just stay blessed, everyone, and you know, when the world's on your shoulders, kneel and pray. It's God.
All right. No worries. Ani, thank you so much for jumping on tonight's live show. And like I told Ani, you're always welcome to jump on anytime. Just click on that link. Always appreciate your feedback on the conversation. And then last but not least, our favorite couple of the Gabra podcast. What's your final thoughts? I'll start with Alici. Alici, what's your final thoughts? And then I'll go to Daniela. What's your final thoughts, Alici?
Like Lani was saying, if you want to date a single mother, good on you, but also like if you don't, that's okay as well. Yeah, this was a good podcast.
No worries. Ty said the biggest perk in dating a single mother, you get to eat all the kids' snacks. Is that true, Daniela?
Can't deny nor confirm.
You get a one foot in a blanket. All right, yeah. Thank you, thank you, Alici, for jumping on tonight. Always welcome,
Thank you
as always. And last but not least, Daniela, final thoughts and to conclude the podcast.
Yeah. Again, Will, thank you so much for accommodating this podcast. You know, when we started this conversation, you know, a couple of weeks ago, and sort of went out that it's information that's very useful, especially with the current dynamic of our society, especially within the poly community or the Pacific Islander community. And we're finding out here in New Zealand, Australia, the same with you guys in Australia, we contribute a lot to negative statistics that's often used as stereotypes. And the common trend that we see is that it's usually single parent household that majority of this is deep rooted into. So when we have these discussions, it opens the table for us to really look at the core root causes of where these issues come from. And instead of sort of leaving the conversation and demonizing, don't date this or don't date that and only date this, we don't open up the table for solution type thinking. And what we're sort of looking at the moment is that there is a lot of men now heading in a direction where sort of they're looking at a problem, and instead of facing the problem with a little bit of guts and leadership and thinking what solution can I come up with, it's just all hands off, walk away.
Yeah.
And not only that, I think for a man you should date, but you should date with genuine intention, in the sense that you should make it known to the woman that you're dating that I'm only dating to figure out and to learn what it is to be a man and what it is to be a man in the presence of a woman. If that is something that you do not want to get involved with, please let me know and we can move on. And the reason for that is we're now finding out as men that we don't know a lot about women in general. We know that they're emotional beings. We know a lot of things that that makes them red flags, but we do not know where compromises lies. All we're seeing is just red flag, green flag, and that's all we're seeing. But when me being in the relationship that I have and the relationship that I've seen all throughout my life, there are certain things that compromises work with, but you only figure that out if you know what it is that how women react to certain things, right? So it's not going to make you an expert, but it's going to give you a head start in terms of understanding, shit, maybe I should just let women be emotional. Why? Because it's great for kids. Kids need that balance for emotional women who are nurturing and are so deep into their nature as a mother. But you as a man, you should be very logical. And there's a balance that a woman provides in her femininity that brings you back into a dynamic where you compromise being logical 24/7. That's what makes to me, what makes a relationship the way it is and what makes it beautiful is that those little instances where you complement each other. So, as a word of encouragement to any man, date, but make your intention genuine, so that you learn what it is that makes women emotional. The best thing for them to be emotional, especially when kids are involved. But all in all, I think this is just this whole platform that you put on, Will, is just the start of something that is very much needed within the community. And to everyone that's been supporting the podcast, really appreciate it. And to anyone who's just sort of looking at things to stab at it, thank you for being here regardless. But yeah, I can't wait to see where this discussion has opened up in terms of doors and opportunities for us to sit down and speak more in these situations. Because as much as we like to look at YouTube videos and stuff like that of people on the internet who's obviously got the money and the options to have the opinions that they have, most of us are stuck in a rat race. Most of us are below six-figure income. So we don't even qualify for the options that majority of these contents make. So we need to come up with better solution as men in the community, and not only that, as women in the community. So I am looking forward to it, and thank you again, Will, for giving us the opportunity to be here.
No, we're not. No words. The pleasure of mine, the honor is mine, and I always appreciate you guys. Also, as a public guest, for Ani and Lani for jumping on and be part of this conversation. Thank you so much. I appreciate all you guys in the live chat. I appreciate you guys if you're watching this right now. Always appreciate you guys tuning in and all the support out there. But like I said, we do this every single Wednesday. So if you miss out this show, take some time and watch the entire show. But definitely tune in every single Wednesday. Like and subscribe so you get the notifications. So that way when we do go live, you can be able to tune in. But nevertheless, I appreciate all you guys. You guys have a blessed night. And Ani and Lani, all you guys. And thank you so much for tuning in from wherever you guys from. I appreciate you guys. And hopefully we can see you guys more next time on more future shows. All right, guys. Good night.
Good night. Malo, Bito.
Oh, Malo. Peace.